Chapter 5377. The Bailey family is really going all out. For the sake of development, they're even willing to give away their family. How amazing! Some of the families who didn't understand why the Bailey family's position was higher than theirs immediately understood. It turned out that this was the most important reason. For a moment, everyone was somewhat jealous. As a small family, it was really difficult for them to improve. Now that the Bailey family suddenly had a meteoric rise, their feelings were naturally extremely complicated. Although the D family, Xiao family, and Jun family's conflicts were constantly intensifying, an aristocratic family was still an aristocratic family. As long as they were willing to support a small family, the small family's strength could quickly improve. If it was someone else, there was no guarantee that they would have such ability. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was the D family's young madam. The D family even gave up Xiao Sou for her. It was obvious how much importance they attached to her. Bailey Fan frowned slightly as he listened to the discussions around him. However, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's carefree and calm smile, he calmed down. After all, the family head was also being criticized by everyone. However, why was the family head so calm? These guys would find out the truth sooner or later. When that time came, they would be envious of the family head for having such a talent. Who told them not to have such good fortune? The D family's members looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's peerless figure with anticipation and admiration in their eyes. They had already heard about the family head's performance a few days ago. She was simply a role model for them to worship. Although the D family had doctors and alchemists, their ranks were completely inferior to the family heads. As for inscriptionists, the D family didn't have any. This was because inscriptionists required enough comprehension and were even rarer than alchemists. However, their family head was actually a 6th-level inscriptionist. They really felt that it was a pity that they missed the family head's opportunity to be in the limelight a few days ago. Fortunately, they could guess how shocking the situation was just by listening to everyone's discussions. Even if they didn't see it with their own eyes, it was still very satisfying. Family head. As Bailey Hongzhuang arrived, everyone in the Bailey family greeted her respectfully. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Wherever her gaze landed, the great elder quickly gave up a seat. Bailey Hongzhuang took the opportunity to sit down. Hearing this unanimous greeting her, no one doubted that this was fake news. Bailey Hongzhuang is really capable. She was born in the lower world, but in the blink of an eye, she became the head of an upper world family. Status. Isn't that so? Was. Family head, these people are just talkative. You don't have to take it to heart. The surrounding discussions made by Li Fan feel a little awkward. He didn't want such untruthful remarks to affect the family head's mood. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand when she heard this. These kinds of remarks will disappear very soon. Furthermore, can't you hear that you're more jealous? Bailey Fan was slightly stunned. After thinking carefully, a smile appeared on his face. That's indeed the case. Chapter 5378. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Bailey Fan suddenly froze. He did not understand the meaning of the Bailey family's words. Today was the day when the family's reputation would spread. After thinking carefully for a moment, Bailey Fan felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was probably talking about today. From today onwards, everyone would know that she was the family head of the Bailey family. Furthermore, the Bailey family and the D family had an inseparable relationship. He had already sensed this earlier. Ever since everyone knew about the relationship between their family and the D family, the way they looked at them had changed. Although there were many criticisms, at least they had received a lot of attention. Just as everyone was talking, the Light Sacred Assembly's president, Liu Hongwei, appeared on the stage in the middle. Following his appearance, the originally bustling square suddenly quieted down a little. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come here. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone. Liu Hongwei bowed. His genial face was filled with a joyful smile. As everyone knows, the Light Sacred Assembly has not had a holy maiden for many years. From the day I became the president of the Light Sacred Assembly, this responsibility has fallen on my shoulders. All these years, I have been trying to find a young person who could become the Holy Maiden. Fortunately, I have not let you down. I have finally found her. Liu Hongwei looked at the cultivators around him. His face was filled with pride. This could be considered as fulfilling the old president's last wish. Even if his soul were to return to the 9 heavens in the future, he would still have the face to meet the old president. Now, let us welcome the Holy Maiden. As soon as he said this, the entire square was filled with thunderous applause. Immediately after, Xiao Sei Wu, like a moon surrounded by stars, slowly appeared in front of everyone with elegant steps. Today, Xiao Sei Wu was wearing a white gauze dress with fluttering feathers woven with silver thread. The aqua-blue pattern embellished the dress, which reflected the dazzling light of the stars under the sunlight. The clothes were specially tailored to accentuate her figure perfectly, revealing her exquisite curves. On her head, there was a crystal crown that symbolized supreme glory and nobility. Her appearance had always been outstanding, and her exquisite makeup made her look even more elegant and otherworldly. The moment she appeared, she gave people a feeling of holiness, elegance, and inviolability. Seeing Xiao Shou like this, everyone below the stage was shocked. Then, a burst of exclamations and sighs broke out. Heavens, I didn't expect Xiao Shou to be so beautiful. After becoming the saintess of the light, even her temperament has become different. Yes, she is so elegant, calm, and noble. This is the saint of light. If it was said that there were many people who were disdainful of Xiao Sei Wu's strength and character before, then after seeing such a Xiao Sei Wu at this moment, their previous thoughts quietly turned into nothingness. Jun Lingxuan looked at Xiao Shou, who was the center of attention, and was momentarily dazed. So Xiao Shou was also so beautiful. A sense of pride arose spontaneously. This was Jun Lingxuan's fiancée. For a moment, many people's gazes also fell on Jun Lingxuan and Di Beichen. Looking at Jun Lingxuan, they were naturally filled with envy. To be able to become a couple with such a saintess of the light was something to be envied. As for looking at Di Beichen, everyone wanted to know if Di Beichen would regret it. Chapter 53-79. Xiao Shou could feel the envious and yearning gazes of the crowd as she stood on the high platform. She could not help but raise the corners of her lips. That was right. This was everything that belonged to her. She was born to be the center of attention. Xiao Yanlong, Tong Yinshu, and the others stared at Xiao Shou, who was enjoying her limitless glory and could not hide their feelings of comfort and excitement. After waiting for so many years, this day has finally come. Xiao Shou turned her gaze and quietly looked at the Di family's group. However, she was shocked when she did not see Bailey Hongzhuang. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang was afraid of seeing my success, so she had purposely found an excuse to not come today? Xiao Shou found it funny at the thought of this. Bailey Hongzhuang has always put on a tough front, but now she finally knows how big of a gap there is between them. However, even if Bailey Hongzhuang had not come today, it would have been useless. This matter would have spread throughout the upper realm, and everyone would know about it. The next moment, Xiao Sei Wu's gaze shifted to Di Beichen. For this man who once made her fall in love with him at first sight, she was also unwilling, and now she was even more resentful. Everyone knew that she had been rejected, and this had undoubtedly caused her to lose face. She also wanted to see Di Beichen's face filled with regret. However, she did not see it because Di Beichen had been watching everything calmly from the very beginning. He did not even show the most basic expression of amazement or stupefaction. A sense of resentment rose in her heart for no reason. She did not know whether Di Beichen was faking it or not. How could he not feel any ripples in his heart at a time like this? When she noticed Jun Lingxuan's expression, Xiao Shou's face bloomed into a smile once again. Master, look at how pleased Xiao Shou is. TSK, TSK. Xiao Hei pursed her lips. She had never concealed her disgust towards people. Right now, she's at the peak of her life. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into an enchanting smile, but her eyes were sharp. She had no intention of destroying the interests of others, but when others threatened her, she would not be polite either. She could only blame Xiao Sou for wanting to take everything away from her, so the two of them were destined to compete. I'm really looking forward to Xiao Sou's expression. Xiao He rubbed its hands. Its bright and clear eyes were filled with anticipation. It believed that its master would definitely succeed. When Lu Hongwei saw Xiao Sou shining like a star, the smile on his face widened, revealing joy and pride. Xi Xiao Sou. Thunderous applause sounded again. The group of young cultivators was extremely envious of Xiao Sou, who could stand shoulder to shoulder with such glory. There were many outstanding cultivators, but there was only one holy maiden. Her position was not something that could be shaken by others, not even by the entire aristocratic family. Xiao Sou enjoyed the applause very much. She walked gracefully to Lu Hongwei's side and stood still, looking at the densely packed crowd in front of her. All these years, Xiao Sou has been working very hard to get to where she is today. The Holy Light Assembly is also very glad that we've finally found the Holy Maiden. Shortly after, Vice President Tong Yunshu's figure appeared before everyone's eyes. I'm sure everyone is very curious about the conditions to become the Holy Maiden. Now that we've found the Holy Maiden, we'll also announce the conditions to everyone. Chapter 5380. In fact, many people were filled with curiosity about this. Even if they were not of the light attribute, they also wanted to know how Xiao Sou managed to achieve a condition that others could not. There are two conditions to become the Saint of the Light. First, the light attribute talent must be at the maximum level without any other impurities. Second, the Saint's crystal must be lit. When these words came out, everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. They did not know what the Saint's crystal was, but the fact that the light attribute was at the maximum level was enough to make them flinch. Those who had awakened their talents to the 7th level were already considered geniuses. Those who had awakened their talents to the 8th or even 9th level were the top geniuses of the major forces. As for the maximum level, it was almost unheard of. However, the condition to become the Saint of the Light required one to have a maximum level of talent. At this moment, everyone finally understood why the Holy Light Assembly had been searching for the Saint of the Light for so many years without success. It turned out that it was so difficult. Did I hear wrongly? Doesn't this mean that Xiao Sou's talent attribute has reached the maximum level? That's too terrifying. Previously, I only knew that Xiao Sou had an extraordinary background. Now I know that Xiao Sou is so powerful. She's a genius among geniuses with such talent. With such talent, her cultivation speed is not something that ordinary people can compare to. Previously, I thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was not weak compared to her. Now, it seems that the gap between them is not ordinary. These words resonated with the crowd. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was an expert in many professions, the upper realm was still a world that revered martial arts. Without enough power, everything was meaningless. Even other professions were born to support one's power. With a maximum level of talent and the position of the Saint of the Light, Xiao Sou's future would be infinitely brilliant. For a moment, everyone looked at the D family with a hint of sympathy. They had made the wrong choice after all. If they knew about Xiao Sou's talent, they would not have made such a decision. That's not right. The D family and the Xiao family are so close. They should know about Xiao Sou's situation very well. Everyone looked at each other. Due to the rise in Xiao Sou's status, the few major forces that were related to her had been contacted by everyone. At this moment, Lu Hongwei's voice sounded again. Of course, as long as one can ignite the Saint's crystal, it doesn't matter if one's talent has not reached the maximum level. However, according to our research, even if you're not at max level, you have to be infinitely close to it before you can ignite the Saint's crystal. Hearing this, everyone was slightly stunned. Did this mean that Xiao Sou had not actually reached the maximum level, but was infinitely close to it? This gave them some comfort. Of course, they also understood that this result was slightly worse than reaching the maximum level, but in reality, it was not much worse, because this kind of talent was not something that everyone could reach. Today is the inauguration ceremony of the Saintess of the Light. Xiao Sou will light up the Saintess crystal on the spot and receive the Saintess baptism. Liu Hongwei's expression was serious and solemn. Today was a solemn day that would be recorded in the history of the Holy Assembly. Next, bring up the Saintess crystal. Chapter 5381. A gigantic square stone pillar appeared quietly with the Saintess crystal placed on top of it. As Liu Hongwei removed the red cloth, everyone finally saw the true appearance of the mysterious Saintess crystal. With just one look, everyone's faces were filled with shock and amazement. A huge hexagonal crystal sat on top of the stone pillar. It looked very simple, but everyone was shocked when they saw it for the first time. They knew that it was definitely not an ordinary item. It must be a holy item. From a moment the Saintess crystal appeared, everyone felt as if they were bathed in the power of light. They felt an indescribable sense of comfort, as if their bodies were being purified and cleansed. Many people even broke through bottlenecks that they had not broken through for a long time under this power. The golden sunlight shone on the Saintess crystal, reflecting a dazzling and blazing light. Everyone could not take their eyes off it. So this is the Saintess crystal. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes narrowed slightly. The moment she saw the Saintess crystal, a strange feeling appeared in her heart. It was intimate, mysterious, and yearning. She could not help but want to get closer to it. Even though she was so far away, she could still feel the pure energy. Master, this Saintess crystal is really amazing. Look, many cultivators broke through in an instant. After the first cultivator broke through, more than 10 people broke through in the entire square. It was undoubtedly a spectacular scene. The cultivators who broke through were all overjoyed. None of them thought that they would receive such a great thing just by coming here to watch the show. It was simply too surprising. The other cultivators looked at them enviously. They were simply too lucky. With their cultivation, it was not easy to break through one level. Now, they were able to receive such benefits just by coming to watch the succession ceremony. However, although everyone was envious of others who could break through directly, they were also satisfied. That was because the purifying power had also benefited them greatly. This is the holy item of our Holy Light Assembly, the Saintess crystal. Whether it was Liu Hongwei or anyone else in the Holy Light Assembly, everyone was extremely sincere when they saw the Saintess crystal. At this moment, everyone understood that the reason why the Holy Light Assembly had always been so aloof was probably related to this inheritance. At the very least, the other guilds did not have such a holy item. Before we proceed with the succession ceremony, I welcome all light attribute cultivators to try and light up the Saintess crystal. Tong Yunshu smiled as she looked at the crowd below the high platform. This was something that the Sacred Assembly had already discussed beforehand. Such an important ceremony must be solemn and solemn. At the same time, it was necessary to let everyone understand that all of this was so strict that there was no element of deception. Upon hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. It seemed that this was the best opportunity that Shi Hongqiao had mentioned earlier. If she could light up the Saintess crystal, then everything would become very interesting. However, after Tong Yunshu finished speaking, no one below the high platform moved. Since the Holy Light Assembly behaved so calmly, there naturally wouldn't be any problems. If he went up at this time, wouldn't it be the same as being Xiao Sou's stepping stone? Chapter 5382. Why would they go up and humiliate themselves when everyone was looking at them? The smile on Xiao Sou's lips grew even more radiant when she saw this. In fact, all of this was within their expectations. At a time like this, no one would be willing to sacrifice themselves for the sake of Xiao Sou and embarrass themselves in front of so many people. Hence, they had only mentioned this point, and they would soon begin the succession ceremony. Just when everyone was sure that no one would step forward at this moment, a voice that was as clear as the sound of nature suddenly resounded, causing the atmosphere to stagnate. Let me try. Everyone turned towards the source of the voice. When they saw the elegant and refined figure of a peerless beauty, they were first stunned before they understood what was going on. The initially silent plaza instantly exploded into a heated discussion. Everyone knew about the grudge between Xiao Sou and Bailey Hongzhuang. They had thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would keep a low profile today, but they never thought that she would make such a shocking move at a time like this. It seems that today's succession ceremony would be much more exciting than they had imagined. Bailey Fan and the Bailey family were completely dumbfounded. They stared at their master in disbelief. Today was probably the day that the Bailey family would receive the most attention. Heavens, the master is actually going to attempt to light up the saint's crystal. Everyone's looking at us. What should we do? As cultivators from small families, they had a sense of inferiority when faced with so many outstanding young people in such an environment. They had only hoped to keep a low profile and avoid being noticed by others. Now, they had become the focus of everyone's attention. The voices of ridicule from before had become even louder. Bailey Hongzhuang really has a deep grudge with Xiao Sou. She's even willing to step forward at a time like this. Wouldn't it be more satisfying for Xiao Sou if she were to embarrass herself? You don't know this, but Bailey Hongzhuang's talent in the light attribute isn't simple either. Some say that she's even more powerful than Xiao Sou. Do you think that her talent can reach the maximum level? Forget I said anything. Bailey Fan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and suddenly understood. So this was what the clan head was talking about when he said that he had a great reputation. His heart skipped a beat. Patriarch, if you want to do such a shocking thing, you should at least inform me first. He was so scared that his heart almost stopped beating. Not only the Bailey family, but the Di family, the Lin family, the Murong family, and the other families that were on good terms with Bailey Hongzhuang were also dumbfounded. What was going on with Bailey Hongzhuang today? Bailey Hongzhuang instantly became the focus of everyone's attention. In the face of everyone's criticism, her expression remained the same. Her beautiful face was surrounded by a confident and elegant luster. Let me try. There shouldn't be a problem, right? Liu Hongwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was standing alone, and a trace of surprise and complexity flashed in his deep eyes. Then he nodded and said, "No problem. You're very welcome." Xiao Sou nodded as well. Her exquisitely made-up face was filled with smiles. She had thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would not be here. She never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually appear in the Bailey family's group. Most importantly, Bailey Hongzhuang was so brainless today. She had come to provoke her at a time like this. Wasn't she looking for death? Chapter 5383. Lighting up the Holy Maiden crystal was not an easy task. Master, are you really going? Bailey Fan looked worriedly at Bailey Hongzhuang. Almost all the powers were gathered here today. If anything were to go wrong, it would not end well. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Bailey Fan. Her calm eyes strangely made Bailey Fan feel more at ease. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. From today onwards, the Bailey family will no longer be nameless. Her ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a bright and determined light. Back then, the Bailey family had gradually declined because of her fall. Now, she wanted the Bailey family to rise to glory under her leadership. Bailey Hongzhuang walked steadily and gracefully towards the high platform. Throughout the entire process, she was the focus of everyone's attention. Jun Lingxuan's lips curled into a cold smile. Bailey Hongzhuang is really a lunatic. She still can't recognize reality at a time like this. What a joke. Previously, he was also worried about this. However, ever since Xiao Sou lit up the Holy Maiden crystal, they were completely at ease. No matter how stunning Bailey Hongzhuang's previous performance was, she was no longer a threat. Junhong Chang furrowed his brows. He didn't know why, but from the moment Bailey Hongzhuang stepped forward, he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. He and Di Yujue had known each other for many years. Although their relationship had always been bad, most of the time, the person who knew him the best was his enemy. With Di Yujue's personality, he would definitely not allow his own family to do such a thing. Although the Di family members also looked extremely shocked, he had almost immediately looked at Dujue. He clearly did not see the slightest bit of shock in his expression. It was as if he already knew all this. Ling Sun, other people shouldn't be able to light up this holy maiden crystal, right? Junhong Chung couldn't help but ask, wanting to confirm it again. Jun Lingshuan smiled and nodded. Of course, father, you don't have to worry. Not everyone can light up the holy maiden crystal. The Holy Light Assembly hasn't been able to find anyone to light it up for so many years. How can so many people appear at once? As far as I know, there's only one person who can light up the Saintess crystal at the same time. Now, that say Wu could light it up, it directly cut off all other possibilities. If Bailey Hongzhuang goes up now, she will only embarrass herself. Just wait for the D family to make a fool of themselves. Jun Lingshuan was immensely pleased with himself. Originally, the D family had wanted to keep a low profile today. However, they actually dared to provoke them at a time like this. They were truly courting death. Hearing Jun Lingshuan's words, Junhong Chung finally relaxed. A smile once again appeared on his face. According to his guess, Dujue probably didn't understand the situation of the Holy Light Assembly, so he was a bit too naive. Wanting to snatch the position of the Holy Maiden at a time like this was really a fool's dream. Tong Yinshu looked at the peerlessly beautiful figure in white, and the ominous premonition in her heart quietly magnified. Long before arriving at the square today, she had this thought in her heart. It was only when she saw that everything was going smoothly that she felt a bit more at ease. However, with the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang, the uneasiness in her heart surfaced again. Chapter 5384. Beichun, isn't it a little too impulsive for Hongzhuang to go up like this? Diju's eyes looked worriedly at the proud white figure in front of him and couldn't help but ask Di Beichun. Appearing at this time would not only give Xiao Sou a chance to humiliate her, but might also offend the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Bailey Hongzhuang was a cultivator of the light attribute. Offending the Radiant Sacred Assembly wouldn't do her any good. Di Beichun glanced at Diju's eyes, then smiled and said, "Don't worry, Hongzhuang knows what she's doing. Besides, didn't President Liu say that everyone is welcome to try?" "That's true, but..." Diju's eyes frowned. Beichun was usually quite smart. Why was he so muddle-headed at this time? As Bailey Hongzhuang got closer and closer to the stage, the smile on Xiao Sou's face grew wider and wider. With a leap, Bailey Hongzhuang gracefully appeared on the stage. If Xiao Sou had monopolized all the glory before, then with Bailey Hongzhuang standing not far from her, the originally dazzling Xiao Sou dimmed a little. Bailey Hongzhuang was wearing a simple and elegant white dress, embellished with stars and moons. Although it wasn't as noble and gorgeous as Xiao Sou's dress, it had a different kind of otherworldly elegance. She was like a lotus rising from the water, as elegant as a lotus. Her exquisite facial features were impeccable. Everyone knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was a top-notch beauty. Even if she didn't dress up, she was already stunning beyond compare. If she did dress up, who knew how stunning she would be? Xiao Sou, who was originally extremely pleased with herself, noticed the change in everyone's attitude. A trace of resentment appeared in her black eyes, but it disappeared in an instant, because soon she would see Bailey Hongzhuang make a fool of herself in front of everyone. In a place where everyone was gathered, once she made a fool of herself, it wouldn't be easy to recover. Liu Hongwei smiled and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. "Miss Bailey, you're welcome to try." Bailey Hongzhuang bowed respectfully. "Sorry to disturb President Liu. Because I'm also a cultivator of the light attribute, I would like to see this sacred object up close." "Such a sacred object. I'm sure it will be more enlightening for us to see it up close." "That's right." Liu Hongwei nodded. "The Saintess crystal contains the purest light energy. If a cultivator of the light attribute comes in contact with it, it may increase their understanding of the light attribute." As these words, all the cultivators of the light were stunned, and their eyes. If they could feel the purification and cleansing of the Saintess crystal from so far away, wouldn't the benefits be even more obvious once they got closer? How difficult to increase their understanding of attributes. They were all too clear about this. Now that there was an opportunity in front of them, they actually ignored it. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, who was already standing beside the Saintess Crystal on a high platform, they suddenly felt that they were too stupid. Bailey Hongzhuang was the real example of great wisdom appearing to be stupidity. It may seem like a joke, but in fact, she had obtained the exact benefits. In fact, after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Lu Hongwei and the rest of the deacons of the Holy Light Assembly understood. So Bailey Hongzhuang didn't deliberately come to find trouble. She just wanted to see the Saintess Crystal up close, so there was nothing wrong with that. Chapter 5385. In the blink of an eye, Bailey Hongzhuang's seemingly stupid decision had turned into the smartest move in everyone's eyes. Xiao So saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had changed everyone's view with just a few words, and she was speechless. Did these fellows not have brains? With one look, she knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had made up an excuse. She actually believed it. Since Miss Bailey wants to try and see if you can light up the Holy Maiden Crystal, then go ahead and give it a try. Xiao Sou's eyes were filled with eagerness. She wanted to grab this opportunity to deal a fatal blow to Bailey Hongzhuang. Ever since she knew Bailey Hongzhuang, she knew that she was eloquent and could even make a dead person come back alive. If she allowed Bailey Hongzhuang to continue speaking like this, she was afraid that even if she failed when she got off the stage, it would not be a big deal in everyone's eyes. She could not let such a thing happen. Tong Yinshu took the opportunity to say, "Miss Bailey, go ahead and give it a try. You only need to circulate the light energy in your body." Lu Hongwei smiled as he introduced, "The Holy Maiden Crystal will absorb your energy. The real Holy Maiden of Light will be able to light up the Holy Maiden Crystal. If it was anyone else, it would not be possible." Lu Hongwei reminded, this was also to let Bailey Hongzhuang understand that it was impossible for her to light up the Holy Maiden Crystal. However, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly said, "President Lu, if I light up this Holy Maiden Crystal, what will happen?" When these words came out, everyone was dumbfounded. What kind of joke was this? Didn't you go up to feel the Holy Maiden Crystal? Did you really think that you could light it up? This Bailey Hongzhuang really does not use her brain when she speaks. Just think about it, and you know that it is impossible for her to light it up. That's right. Isn't she just making things difficult for herself? It will be hard for her to get off the stage later. The cultivators of the 100 Lane clan lowered their heads to the ground under everyone's gaze. "Patriarch, you have to think about us when you speak. You may be able to withstand such gazes, but we really can't." At this moment, the D family and the Lin family were also receiving everyone's mocking gazes. However, Di Yujue and the others looked calm, as if they didn't care about this at all. Lu Hongwei and the others did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to suddenly ask such a question. For a moment, they did not know how to answer. They had never imagined such an outcome. Xiao So saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was still so arrogant at this time, and the resentment in her eyes grew stronger. "Miss Bailey, the president has already said that only the Holy Maiden Crystal can light up." Xiao So deliberately emphasized the word only. "Of course, if you can think it over, then I'll give you my position as the Holy Maiden of Light." "Okay," Bailey Hongzhuang replied. "What?" "Okay." Xiao So almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "Did you not understand what I meant?" Without waiting for Xiao So to continue speaking, the elemental energy in Bailey Hongzhuang's body surged and flowed towards the Holy Maiden Crystal. Everyone's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang and the Holy Maiden Crystal. Even though they had already expected this outcome, they could not help but be curious. After all, there would always be suspense until the end. Xiao So looked at Bailey Hongzhuang mockingly. It was impossible for the Holy Maiden Crystal to light up. She was waiting to see how Bailey Hongzhuang would deal with this situation. Chapter 5386. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the Holy Maiden Crystal. Everyone wanted to know if the Holy Maiden Crystal would react. By the time Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her hands, the Holy Maiden Crystal had already calmed down and did not react at all. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows wrinkled slightly. Could it be that the position of the Holy Maiden of Light really belonged to Xiao Seiwu? Even if she was more talented than Xiao Sou and had a purer elemental energy, she still couldn't snatch this position away. It's indeed a failure. The Holy Maiden of Light has searched for so many years and finally found Xiao Sou. Naturally, there can't be a mistake. Otherwise, wouldn't it become a joke? Bailey Hongzhuang is really in a difficult position now. She might really think that she can light up the Holy Maiden Crystal. Haha. Mocking laughter rang out unabashedly. The entire square immediately erupted into a heated discussion. This was the most interesting scene they had seen today. Di Beichen's eyes darkened when he saw this. His handsome brows were tightly knitted together. He could not help but feel his heart ache as he looked at the thin figure on the high platform. Then, Di Beichen stood up and walked toward the high platform. Seeing Di Beichen's actions, everyone present was stunned. They immediately understood how protective Di Beichen was of his wife. If it was an ordinary person, his wife would have caused him and his entire family to lose face. At this point in time, he would probably not be willing to pay any attention to her. However, Di Beichen did not take this to heart. He only had Bailey Hongzhuang in his heart. Although many people felt that Di Beichen's blind love for his wife was a little foolish, almost all the women were extremely envious of Bailey Hongzhuang. So what if she had lost face? At least, her husband had always doted on her. If it was any other man, how many of them could do the same? Di Yujue, you've really played to the gallery this time. You made such a big joke. Jun Hongcheng knew that after seeing this result, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. There was a hint of mockery between his brows. Don't tell me you think that your daughter-in-law can become the Holy Maiden just because she's of the light attribute? He knew very well how important that inheritance was to the Di family. It was precisely because of this that he was so worried when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's actions today. Fortunately, that situation did not happen, and it was impossible for it to happen. Hearing this, Di Yujue looked indifferently at Jun Hongcheng. If we hadn't taken the initiative, we would have given it to you. Since he felt that he had picked up a big bargain, then he should keep a low profile. He couldn't possibly go around announcing that he had picked up a bargain, right? Besides, I don't care at all. Do you think anyone would believe you at a time like this? Jun Hongcheng did not care. Even though Di Yujue's face did not reveal any clues, Jun Hongcheng could still sense the guilt and nervousness hidden in the other party's heart. How many years has it been? How many years have we waited for this day? Finally, we can see the dawn of defeating the Di family. Xiao Sou's eyes were filled with excitement. Ever since she had met Bailey Hongzhuang, she had never defeated Bailey Hongzhuang in such a direct manner. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Bailey Hongzhuang had already lost to her. This was an irrefutable fact. Chapter 5387. Back then, everyone had firmly believed that Bailey Hongzhuang's talent in the light attribute was stronger than hers. Even though she was the next saint of the Light Clan, she had felt that it was a form of mockery. But now, everyone understood that the gap between their light attribute was incomparable. No one would compare them in this aspect anymore. In the future, Bailey Hongzhuang would have to take a detour whenever she sees her. Miss Bailey, it looks like your wishful thinking has gone wrong. You're unable to light up the Saint of the Light Clan's crystal so naturally. I can't give you the position of the Saint of the Light Clan. Xiao Sou's face was filled with a joyous smile, but her eyes were filled with disgust and satisfaction. Every dog has its day. Bailey Hongzhuang also has her day. However, just as Xiao Sou had spoken, everyone's eyes were suddenly attracted to the Saint of the Light Clan's crystal. Look, the Saint of the Light Clan's crystal seems to be changing. Once she said this, everyone turned to look at the Saint of the Light Clan's crystal. They saw that the Saint of the Light Clan's crystal, which had been calm all this time, suddenly emitted layers of light, and a bright light quietly appeared. This light gradually expanded and became increasingly resplendent. When Di Beichen walked up to the high platform, he noticed that the Saint of the Light Clan's crystal had suddenly shone brightly. His tightly pursed lips suddenly rose, and his incomparably handsome face became even more bewitching. Tong Yunshu's worried heart had not been able to relax for a moment when she sensed the change in the Saint of the Light clan's crystal. When she raised her head, her expression instantly froze. Xiao Sou was standing in front of the Saint of the Light clan's crystal. Just a second ago, she had been immensely pleased with herself as she taunted Bailey Hongzhuang. However, in the next second, she noticed everyone's shocked gazes and could not help but stiffly turn around. When she saw the Saint of the Light clan's crystal emitting a blazing light, she felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She stood dazedly on the spot, her face filled with disbelief. What's going on? Bailey Hongzhuang has really lit up the Saint of the Light clan's crystal? Wasn't it said that only the Saint of the Light clan's crystal could light it up? Bailey Hongzhuang lit it up right away. Doesn't that mean that Bailey Hongzhuang can also become the Saint of Light? Earlier, many people said that Bailey Hongzhuang's talent was better than Xiao Sou's. Now it seems that it was all true. Today's situation has become interesting. I wonder who will be the Saint of Light's successor. The sudden turn of events was beyond everyone's expectations. Everyone from the Holy Assembly stared at this scene in a daze. They were shocked and exclaimed. Lu Hongwei's heart was already in turmoil. All these years, in order to let Xiao Sou light up the Holy Maiden Crystal, they had thought of all kinds of methods. It wasn't until a few days ago that Xiao Sou was able to light up the Saint's crystal, but it was only slightly brighter. Compared to the light emitted by the Saint's crystal, it was just a drop in the ocean. The Saint's crystal's transformation did not stop there. After it had emitted a resplendent light, the light gradually changed and began to emit a rainbow light. Under the sunlight, the dazzling rainbow light was like the most precious treasure in the world, making it hard for people to take their eyes off it. This is... Lu Hongwei's hands trembled slightly, expressing the excitement in his heart. This should be the true appearance of the Saint's crystal after it has been lit up. Chapter 5388. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into an enchanting and confident smile. Her judgment was right. She could light up the Holy Maiden Crystal. Her master was the Holy Maiden of Light. As a disciple, how could she face her master if she was inferior to others? Shi Hongxiao, who was at the back, did not know what to say. When Bailey Hongzhuang had announced that she could light up the Holy Maiden Crystal, although he had expressed his belief, he still had some doubts in his heart. This was because, as a member of the Holy Assembly, he knew all too well how difficult it was to light up the Holy Maiden Crystal. Even though Xiao Sou had worked hard for so many years, she had only managed to light it up a little. Therefore, he could not help but be suspicious. But after witnessing the radiance emanating from the Saint's crystal, she realized that she had underestimated the situation. Bailey Hongzhuang was the real Holy Maiden of Light. Her talent in the light attribute was simply heaven-defying. The deacon of the Holy Assembly, who had been persuaded by Shi Hongxiao to help Bailey Hongzhuang, was also stunned. He had initially wanted to help Shi Hongxiao because he could not bear to see the Xiao family occupying the absolute position in the Holy Assembly. Once Xiao Sou became the Holy Maiden of Light, their position would be greatly threatened. However, he was surprised to find that he had made the right bet this time. Although the result had not been confirmed, even an idiot would know that Bailey Hongzhuang was the real Holy Maiden of Light. Previously, when Xiao Sou had lit up the Holy Maiden Crystal, he had also noticed. How could the light of a firefly dare to compete with the brilliance of the sun and the moon? The difference between the two was not small at all. No matter how powerful the Xiao family was, they could not cover the sky with one hand. Furthermore, the Di family's power did not lose to the Xiao family at all. In an instant, the atmosphere had become exceptionally strange. Previously, the Holy Assembly had made it very clear that only the Holy Maiden of Light could light up the Holy Maiden Crystal. No one else could light it up. However, only Bailey Hongzhuang had walked up to the high platform and had easily lit up the Holy Maiden Crystal. This was awkward. Was it because anyone could light up the Saint's crystal, Or was Xiao So not the real saintess of light? If Xiao So wasn't the saintess of light, wouldn't that be a huge mistake? No matter how one looked at it, this was not something that could be resolved in a short period of time. Xiao So stared at the scene in a daze. She couldn't believe that all of this was real. She couldn't understand why the Saintess Crystal had undergone such a huge change after Bailey Hongzhuang had injected her power into it. This was completely different from what the president had told her. Her face gradually turned pale, and her hands and feet began to turn cold. An uncontrollable thought lingered in her mind. This was the moment where she was the center of attention. Now, all the limelight had been stolen by Bailey Hongzhuang. She was more worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would take away her position as the Saint of Light. Once Bailey Hongzhuang becomes the Saintess of Light, what would she do in the future? Recalling what Bailey Hongzhuang had said earlier, she felt that Bailey Hongzhuang had premeditated all of this. Bailey Hongzhuang had already known that this would happen and had purposely come here to slap her in the face. Xiao So stared venomously at Bailey Hongzhuang. A bone-deep hatred burned in her heart, almost burning away her rationality and driving her crazy. Chapter 5389. In the face of Xiao So's curses, Bailey Hongzhuang remained extremely calm. Her delicate, jade-like face curled into a faint smile. Her already unparalleled features were now even more enchanting and bewitching. Xiao So, none of this belongs to you. You've been hogging this title for so many years. That's enough. Bailey Hongzhuang calmly replied. You, Xiao So stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. She was about to explode from anger. This damned woman, how dare she treat me like this? Below the high platform, the atmosphere was just as lively. If Bailey Fan and the others had previously been particularly worried about Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, their hearts were now completely at ease after witnessing this scene. Patriarch, you're really amazing when you don't make a sound. What's going on? Is the Master going to become the Saint of Light? I think so. Isn't it said that whoever can light up the Saint's crystal will become the Saint of Light? If the Master of Light really becomes the Saint of Light, our status in the Master of Light will be greatly elevated. The disciples' faces lit up with joy. No one had ever thought that such a good thing would happen. Becoming the Saint of Light would mean that she would have an inseparable connection with the Holy Assembly of Light. Their Master of Light would have an incomparably powerful backer aside from the D family. This way, even if they were a small Master of Light, no one would dare to plot against them. Over the years, due to their Master of Light's gradual decline, they had been surviving in the cracks. Only they knew how anxious and aggrieved they had been. Now all of this had a chance to change. Once they thought of that situation, they could not hide the excitement in their hearts. Junhong Chung, it seems that you've been too complacent just now. Di Yujue's lips curled into a small smile as he stared mockingly at Junhong Chung. Actually, he was extremely shocked as well. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had previously said that she would do this, he was still a little worried because the possibility of success was simply too small. However, he did not expect that all of this would actually succeed. The light emitted by the Saintess Crystal was extremely bright. Even though he didn't know what Xiao So looked like when she lit up the Saintess Crystal, he could roughly tell from President Lu's expression that Xiao So probably couldn't reach that level. Thinking of this, he was already confident of victory. As the head of an aristocratic family, he still had this bit of foresight. Even if the relationship between the Xiao family and the Holy Assembly of Light was complicated and not easily shaken, the position of the Holy Maiden of Light was not something that could be achieved through power alone. Hearing Di Yujue's words, Junhong Cheng's face was as gloomy as water. His heart had already turned cold when he heard this change. Now that he heard this ridicule, he only felt extremely embarrassed. After all, he was still mocking Di Yujue a second ago, and in the next second, he was slapped in the face. This change was too fast. Di Yujue, don't be too complacent. Everything hasn't been decided yet. Junhong Chung still had some confidence in his heart. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang could light up the Saintess Crystal, it would only be a draw at the moment. Speaking of which, the scales of victory were still leaning towards their side. In contrast to Jun Hongcheng's self-consolation, Jun Lingxuan's heart had already sunk to the bottom. Chapter 5390. Everyone from the Xiao family was supposed to be incomparably glorious today, but the sudden turn of events had caused the smiles on their faces to become unusually comical and awkward. "Master, what should Sou do now?" Madame Zhao's face was filled with anxiety. This Bailey Hongzhuang is really not easy to deal with. She actually ruined such an important day. Xiao Yanlong's gaze was malicious and ruthless. If he could, he wished that he could rush up and crush Bailey Hongzhuang to death. He was extremely disgusted with Bailey Hongzhuang, but he thought that the conflict between the younger generation should be left to the younger generation to resolve themselves. After all, Xiao Sou herself also needed some space to grow. If he helped her solve everything, then there would be no meaning in her growth. However, he never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so difficult to deal with. The destruction from before was already unbearable, and now she had actually gone to this extent. Don't be anxious now. Let's see what the president has to say. The atmosphere on the high platform instantly froze, and time seemed to have stopped. Even Lu Hongwei did not know what to do for a moment. "Master, what should we do now?" Xiao Sou anxiously transmitted her voice to Tong Yinshu. The current her was already out of her wits, and she subconsciously looked for the person she trusted the most. Tong Yinshu also felt that this situation was very troublesome. This scene had exceeded everyone's expectations. She had never thought about how to deal with this if something like this were to happen. In fact, her mind was also blank. The only thing she remembered was that her premonition was actually so accurate. So, calm down first. Don't panic. Once you panic, you will fall into Bailey Hongzhuang's trap. The situation is still uncertain. Perhaps the change in the Saintess crystal was not caused by Bailey Hongzhuang, but a change in her. It won't be too late to wait for the president to make a decision. Hearing Tong Yunshu's words, Xiao Sou seemed to have found her backbone, and her trembling legs once again stabilized. That's right. Everything was not set in stone yet. Xiao Sou comforted herself. She would not lose like this. "President Liu, now that my wife has lit up the Holy Maiden Crystal, does this mean that someone is going to abdicate?" Di Beichen's voice was magnetic and pleasant to listen to, breaking the stiff situation on the high platform. Only then did Lu Hongwei come back to his senses. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. According to the legacy of the Holy Light Assembly, there should only be one person who can light up the Holy Maiden Crystal. This was what he couldn't understand the most. Seeing this, Xiao Sou couldn't help but say, "President, maybe the changes that happened after I lit up the Saintess crystal was just a coincidence. It has nothing to do with Bailey Hongzhuang." "That's possible, but," Lu Hongwei pondered. "If it was a coincidence, then wouldn't it be too much of a coincidence?" Although he couldn't deny the existence of such a coincidence, the probability was too low. "President, we haven't seen Miss Xiao light up the Holy Maiden Crystal. Why don't you let us see it?" Bailey Hongzhuang suggested with a faint smile. "If it's really just a coincidence, we'll know once we compare." When these words came out, everyone present nodded in agreement. Compared to other situations, this was undoubtedly the best method. Chapter 5391. Xiao Sou was eager to give it a try as well. She believes that everything was just as her master had said. This must have been a change in the sacred maiden crystal and had nothing to do with Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as she could light up the sacred maiden crystal as well, they could pretend that nothing had happened. Seeing that Xiao Sou had no objections, Lu Hongwei nodded. "Since that's the case, Lady Xiao, you may try to light it up." At this moment, Lu Hongwei held back a little more when he spoke. At this moment, he did not know who was the true sacred maiden between Xiao Sou and Bailey Hongzhuang, so he could not rashly use this title on either of them. Xiao Sou would naturally sense this as well, and her gaze became even more malicious. "It's all because of this hateful woman. She had actually caused my position to be threatened." Xiao Sou walked toward the sacred maiden crystal as quickly as she could. She wanted to use her powers to prove her identity. Xiao Sou's gaze remained fixed on the sacred maiden crystal as she continued to pour her power into it. However, the sacred maiden crystal did not react even after she had retracted her hands. No one found this strange, because when Bailey Hongzhuang had tried to light it up, the sacred spirit crystal had reacted rather slowly as well. Hence, everyone had waited patiently. However, as the wait grew longer and longer, the crowd's expressions became more and more complicated. Why hasn't the sacred maiden crystal reacted at all after such a long time? Could it be that Xiao Shou is unable to light up the sacred maiden crystal? Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's previous situation, it seems that too much time has passed. The crowd looked at each other. With the previous example, they did not dare to speak carelessly. Otherwise, wouldn't it be awkward if they were to say that Xiao Shou was unable to light it up and she succeeded in the next second? The entire plaza was exceptionally quiet. Everyone stared at the sacred maiden crystal, waiting for the next change. Time ticked by, but the Saintess crystal didn't react at all, as if it had never sensed anything. Xiao Shou's face grew paler as time passed. She looked at the Saintess crystal in disbelief. She couldn't understand why she could light it up before, but now she couldn't. "Master, what's going on?" Xiao Shou looked at Tong Yinshu, her trembling voice filled with panic and urgency. Tong Yinshu's expression wasn't much better than Xiao Shou's. Even though she had been the vice president for so many years, this situation was still out of her expectations. She thought for a moment, then turned to look at Lu Hongwei. "President, could it be that something happened to the Saintess crystal just now, and that's why it can't light up now?" Lu Hongwei frowned. Although the Saintess crystal was their holy item, they did not know much about it. The only thing they knew was that the Saintess of Light could light it up. Given the current situation, he needed some time to think. Thinking of this, Lu Hongwei looked at the deacons of the sacred assembly nearby and asked, "What do you think?" "President, in my opinion, I'm afraid that Miss Bailey is the real Saintess of Light. This situation is already very obvious." Shi Hongqiao clasped his hands together and expressed his opinion. Chapter 53:92. Whoever could light up the Holy Maiden crystal would be the Holy Maiden of the Light. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had lit it up and Xiao Shou had not, wasn't it obvious who was superior? Seeing that Shi Hongqiao was the first to stand out, Xiao Shou immediately glared at him fiercely. She remembered this guy and understood that he must be using this opportunity to avenge his personal grudge. "President, we still haven't figured out the changes in the Holy Maiden crystal. In my opinion, why don't we pause today's succession ceremony and wait until we figure it out before making a decision?" Another deacon spoke up, under the watchful eyes of the crowd. If they continued to study here, the situation would become somewhat complicated. Hearing that, Xiao Yanlong could not continue watching. With just a glance, the Xiao clan deacon spoke up. "President, today's matter is only a sudden change in the Holy Maiden crystal. This does not mean that there is anything wrong with Miss Zhao's identity as the Holy Maiden. Could it be that just because of this little coincidence, we're sure that our judgment all these years was wrong?" In an instant, the deacons who were on good terms with the Xiao clan all agreed. If Xiao Shou lost her position as the Holy Maiden of the Light and was replaced by her enemy, Bailey Hongzhuang, they would have a hard time in the future. Seeing that, Shi Hongqiao glanced at the other deacons, and a few deacons stood out as well. "President, I think that you should be happy about what happened today. At least before the succession ceremony, we found a real Holy Maiden of the Light. This is all God's will. It doesn't matter if we were wrong before. As long as we figure out now, it's not too late." Seeing that everyone had different opinions, Lu Hongwei gradually formed his own thoughts. Everyone quiet down. The people who were arguing with each other immediately quieted down and looked at Lu Hongwei. In the next moment, Lu Hongwei turned to the various major forces below the high platform. "Regarding today's situation, I also feel very guilty. I'll let everyone see a farce." As soon as he said that, the people below the high platform stopped their discussion. As the president of the Holy Light Assembly, Lu Hongwei had always been a senior that everyone respected. Although this matter was indeed beyond everyone's expectations, it did not affect their respect for Lu Hongwei. The confirmation of the Saintess is extremely important to the Holy Assembly of Light, so we must get to the bottom of this. Otherwise, not only would we be blaspheming the Saintess, we would also be letting down everyone in the Holy Assembly. Today, I may have wasted a lot of your time, so I hope everyone can forgive me. Guildmaster, we're fine. You don't have to worry about it. Below the stage, the major forces express their opinions one after another. Compared to their attitude of watching a good show, Lu Hongwei's feelings were undoubtedly more complicated. At this moment, when he said such words, everyone felt very understanding. Regardless of whether this was a coincidence or not, the Holy Light Assembly had to find out. Thank you for your understanding. Lu Hongwei bowed deeply, his gentle and benevolent face filled with seriousness and solemnity. Are there any other light attribute cultivators who are willing to try and see if they can light up the Saintess crystal? Lu Hongwei asked. Hearing this, everyone immediately understood Lu Hongwei's idea. He wanted to eliminate them one by one through this idea. Before Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, no one was willing to fight. However, now that they knew that being in close proximity to the Saintess crystal was very beneficial to them, they naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. Chapter 5393. Several light-attributed cultivators walked up the stage and came into close contact with the Saintess crystal, hoping that they would be able to light it up. In the past, everyone knew that the position of Saintess belonged to Xiao So, so no one had the thought of snatching it. But now it was different. This had become a chance for anyone to try. As long as they could light it up, they could easily become the Saintess of Light, a proud daughter of heaven. Xiao So looked at the people who came forward to try, her eyes filled with ridicule. These motley crew were also looking at the Saintess crystal. They were simply dreaming. Bailey Hongzhuang was very calm. Di Beichun had already walked to her side, his handsome face filled with a faint smile. Wife, our judgment was indeed correct. You are the real Saintess of Light. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. It seems that the Holy Assembly doesn't know much about the Saintess crystal, so they can only check it one by one. It's only a matter of time. No one can light it up, but only you can light it up. Then everyone will know the truth. Di Beichun's face was calm. They had already planned all of this. They were just here to watch Xiao So and the others slowly give up. Beichun, there's one thing I don't understand. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Everything else could be explained, but there was one thing that she couldn't understand. I don't understand why Xiao So could light up the Saintess crystal before. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Isn't this very strange? Since only the Saintess can light it up, why can Xiao So light it up? Did you notice the change in everyone's expression after you lit up the Saintess crystal? Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment. Everyone was very surprised. According to my judgment, Xiao So's previous illumination of the Saintess crystal wasn't like this. Perhaps she didn't really illuminate the Saintess crystal at all, but because her light attribute talent was stronger than ordinary cultivators, the Saintess crystal had a slight change. That's possible. If Xiao So's innate talent is already very close to the maximum level, maybe the Holy Tablet of Light last time will be of great help to her. After Di Beichun mentioned it, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. Therefore, we can watch everyone try with peace of mind. The Xiao clan can no longer change this matter. Di Beichun's voice was full of confidence. The Saint of Light originally belonged to Hongzhuang. Xiao So had occupied the position for so long, and it was time for her to hand it over. Even when several cultivators tried, not a single one of them was able to cause any change to the Saintess crystal. Seeing this scene, Xiao So couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. President, the Saintess crystal must have undergone a change on its own. It has nothing to do with anyone else. That's right, President. Our sacred assembly still has many things we don't understand about the Saintess crystal. Why don't we wait until after the succession ceremony to study it? Tang Yinshu also spoke up. Vice President, it's too early for you to say that. I feel that the Saintess crystal was lit up by Miss Bailey. The possibility of that kind of coincidence is too small. Shi Hongqiao stood up. He couldn't let Tong Yunshu and the others casually gloss over this matter. Chapter 5394. Xiao Sou glared hatefully at Shi Hongqiao and the others. These damned bastards were obviously trying to take advantage of this opportunity to push her off the stage. Why get back today? I must find a way to kill these bastards. Wife, why don't you try again? Di Beichun suddenly asked. Lu Hongwei's eyes lit up. Actually, he was thinking the same thing. If Bailey Hongzhuang could light up the Holy Maiden crystal again, it would prove that everything that had happened before was not a coincidence. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Lu Hongwei and asked, President Lu, can I? Lu Hongwei nodded and said, Of course. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's second attempt, the atmosphere around them became tense. This time, everyone would know who the Holy Maiden was. However, as Bailey Hongzhuang's hands approached the Holy Maiden crystal, a slight surge of energy caused the Holy Maiden crystal to emit the dazzling rainbow light from before, dazzling everyone's eyes. A confident smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate face. She raised her eyebrows and looked proudly at Xiao Sou. Her red lips parted slightly and she mouthed, The outcome has been decided. Xiao Sou lost her balance and stumbled back 2 steps. She stared blankly at the scene before her, and her face turned ashen. Impossible. This is impossible. Everyone in the audience was extremely amazed as they looked at the proud figure on the high platform. They did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang was the real Saint Lady of the Light. This was simply too shocking. Previously, Xiao Sou could at least rely on her identity as the Holy Maiden to compete with Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that she doesn't even have this identity, how is she going to challenge Bailey Hongzhuang in the future? Xiao Sou is really done for. Without this identity, she's just an ordinary young lady from an aristocratic family. The Di family's eyes are really too shrewd. They can actually see that Bailey Hongzhuang has the most potential. They're the real winners. Di Yujue's eyes shone brightly. A sense of pride arose spontaneously. Whether it was his son or his daughter-in-law, he was extremely satisfied. This was simply too wonderful. President, there's no need to doubt anymore. Miss Bailey is the real Holy Maiden. Shi Hongqiao said with a smile. Lu Hongwei nodded. At this moment, he no longer had any doubts. Indeed, I've searched for so many years, but I still got it wrong. The real Holy Maiden is in the lower realm. No wonder I spent so many years searching. Lu Hongwei sighed faintly, but he was relieved in his heart. Although there was a huge blunder today, and the Holy Assembly of Light's reputation was tarnished, they still managed to clarify everything during the succession ceremony. If he to find out the truth to the Bailey Hongzhuang, then he would not to find Bailey Hongzhuang. In the next moment, Lu Hongwei announced to the crowd, I now announce that Bailey Hongzhuang is the real Holy Maiden. As soon as he said this, the crowd was shocked. Then, thunderous applause rang out, followed by congratulatory voices. Hearing this, Xiao Sou stumbled and almost lost her footing. Fortunately, Tong Yunshu supported her. However, her eyes were bloodshot. She shouted angrily and ferociously, Impossible! This is impossible! Seeing Xiao Sou's crazed look, the crowd looked askance. This was a huge blow to her. Chapter 5395. President, don't be muddle-headed. Xiao Sou grabbed Lu Hongwei's hand and pleaded. She couldn't lose all of this. Absolutely not. Looking at Xiao Sou's hysterical appearance, Lu Hongwei was somewhat apologetic. So, I was wrong before, so it caused such a big misunderstanding. I'm really sorry. Don't worry. If there's a chance, I will find a way to compensate you. But in this matter, it can't be changed. Lu Hongwei sighed. He also understood that Xiao Sou would find it difficult to accept such a thing. However, this matter was not something he could decide. The Holy Maiden Crystal had chosen the Holy Maiden of Light. Vice President, take good care of her. Lu Hongwei ordered. Tong Yunshu quickly supported Xiao Sou. She was also anxious and worried. So, you must hold on. At this point, as the vice president, She understood that this matter was already irreversible. In order to prevent Xiao Sou from continuing to lose control of her emotions, the best way was to take her back first. However, Xiao Sou was not willing at all. She shouted, "No, there must be a mistake. Bailey Hongzhuang can't have a max-level talent. So let's go back first." Tang Yinshu pulled Xiao Sou. Under the watchful eyes of the public, it would have a bad impact on Xiao Sou. "Don't pull me," Xiao Sou shouted heartbreakingly. "I don't believe it." Xiao Yanlong was already unable to sit still. At this moment, seeing Xiao Sou crying heartbreakingly, he directly jumped onto the high platform, his face serious and angry. "President Liu, how can you just say that it was a mistake and forget about it?" Xiao Yanlong questioned. "Sou is right. Since the Holy Maiden of Light needs to have a max-level talent, unless Bailey Hongzhuang really has it, it is impossible to convince the public." "Patriarch Xiao, I'm really sorry about this matter. I didn't think that I would make such a mistake. However, you saw the situation clearly just now," Lu Hongwei explained guiltily. He didn't want things to turn out this way. He didn't expect that after searching for the saint for so many years, he would end up in such a mess. However, before Lu Hongwei could finish his words, the cultivators from the Xiao family and the Jun family began to protest. Xiao Sou glared fiercely at Bailey Hongzhuang. "Unless you have a max-level talent, you can't be the real Saint of Light." If it was anything else, Bailey Hongzhuang might be a little worried, but when she heard this request, she didn't care at all. This guy really wouldn't give up until all hope was gone. Max-level talent? She was. Xiao Sou stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. She had already heard about Bailey Hongzhuang's situation in Rome and City. It was said that there were impurities in Bailey Hongzhuang's talent, but a small place like Rome and City didn't know how to judge the result. Lu Hongwei thought about it again and again. Now that the entire venue was in an uproar, if this matter was not calmed down, he was afraid that everyone would not accept it. "In that case, let's test the talent on the spot." As soon as these words came out, Xiao Sou stopped struggling. However, her red eyes were still filled with hatred. Her hands were clenched into fists. Her nails were already embedded in her flesh. Blood stained her fingers, but she didn't feel it. The pain couldn't hide her hatred and anger. Chapter 5396. A transparent crystal ball was slowly placed on another square pillar. Everyone present was familiar with this crystal ball. It was a device used to test one's innate talent. When Shangguan Yingying saw this crystal ball, a trace of worry appeared in her eyes. Xiren, when Hongzhuang tested her innate talent, this crystal ball also showed the darkness attribute. If we test her innate talent in front of so many people, won't it cause a disturbance? Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang was most worried that others would find out about her innate talent. Once everyone found out that she was a cultivator of both the darkness and light attributes, who knew what kind of uproar it would cause? It was likely that such a thing had never happened in the entire upper realm. Xiren was also somewhat worried about this. He looked at Di Beichen and Shangguan Yingying on the high platform. However, the two of them looked calm and did not reveal any clues. "I don't know either. I hope that Hongzhuang and Di Beichen will have a way to deal with this. This Xiao Sou really won't give up until all hope is gone. Even at this point, she still can cause some trouble." Di Yujue was also aware of this situation. When Bailey Hongzhuang had displayed her innate talent for them, he had already noticed this. If everyone really found out, the situation would become complicated. At the very least, the Xiao family would definitely not let go of this opportunity to target Hongzhuang. "Bailey Hongzhuang, you can take the test." Xiao Sou looked coldly at Bailey Hongzhuang. She bit her red lips and widened her blood-red eyes. She wanted nothing more than to cut Bailey Hongzhuang into pieces. "Miss Bailey, you can take the test," Tang Yinshu said with a similarly cold expression. In fact, she also did not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang had such an innate talent. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Then, they walked in front of the crystal ball and poured light energy into it. Very soon, a dazzling light burst out from the crystal ball, and in an instant, the crystal ball was filled with the power of light. Lu Hongwei heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a hint of surprise. Max-level talent. This was a true max-level talent. In the past, Xiao Shou had always been unable to achieve this, and they had always tried to make up for it. He had only thought that the conditions were too harsh. Only now did he realize that the real Saint of Light could easily achieve this step. When Xiao Shou saw that Bailey Hongzhuang really had a max-level talent, she was stunned for a moment. However, she didn't give up hope. Instead, she continued to wait for Bailey Hongzhuang's attributes to appear. As long as the impurities appeared, everything could be reconsidered. However, she waited for a long time until Bailey Hongzhuang withdrew her hands. When no impurities appeared, she could not help but be dumbfounded. Xiao Yanlong naturally understood what Xiao Shou was waiting for. He was also very puzzled. The news that had been sent back at the time should not have been wrong. What had gone wrong? Xiao Shou, you don't have anything else to say now, do you? Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Xiao Shou as the corners of her lips curled into a faint smile. However, it gave Xiao Shou an inexplicable sense of superiority. When her innate talent had first awakened, she did not know that she would have two innate talents. Therefore, she had no way of hiding it. After she and Di Beichun had cultivated two different attributes, she had experimented and found that as long as she controlled it, she could only display one type of innate talent. Chapter 53-97. Faced with Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Shou was already speechless. She had said all the moves she could think of, but none of them were able to defeat Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, the situation was truly hopeless. Her hands and feet gradually turned cold, and she could feel that everyone's gazes no longer contained the envy from before. On the contrary, they were filled with ridicule and ridicule. This feeling made her feel like she was about to collapse. I can't accept all of this. Xiao Shou could not help but shout. After so many years of hard work, the fruits of her labor were actually snatched away today. How could she accept this? So. Tong Yinshu nervously looked at Xiao Shou, only to discover that Xiao Shou had actually fainted under such hysteria. How is Miss Xiao? Lu Hongwei revealed a worried expression. This matter was indeed his fault. He had also watched Xiao Shou grow up. At this moment, when he saw Xiao Shou fainting because she could not take the blow, he also felt extremely pained. It's none of your business. Xiao Yanlong looked at Lu Hongwei with hatred, then carried Xiao Shou and walked off the stage. Let's go. Xiao Yanlong coldly snorted and immediately left with the Xiao family's team. At this point, if they continued to stay here, they would only be treated as a joke by everyone. Junhong Chung, Xiao Yanlong has already left. Are you still going to stay here? Di Yujua looked at Junhong Chung mockingly. This guy had been counting his chickens before they were hatched, but he never thought that this would be the result. Just thinking about it was enough to know how broken his heart was. Junhong Chung had been immersed in shock until he heard Di Yujua's words. Only then did he regain his senses and coldly said, "It's none of your business." In the next moment, Junhong Chung also stood up angrily and said, "Let's go." Everyone watched as the Xiao family and Xiao family, who were originally the most glorious, left in such anger and sighed in their hearts. Following the departure of the two families' teams, the plaza returned to its original calm. After Lu Hongwei calmed himself down, he spoke again. The previous matter was due to our lack of clarity. I'm very sorry that such a thing had happened. Now, the Saint of the Light has been chosen. She is Bailey Hongzhuang. Once this was said, everyone applauded and praised. At this moment, no one would question her identity. Bailey Hongzhuang had proven everything with her strength. God's favored daughter. She was a true God's favored daughter. Hers is to reach his level. Bailey Hongzhuang had relied on hers' hat's level. To say Bailey Hongzhuang had relied on hers' as had relied as to reach had. To estites is she, her, s's of this. Because too many unforeseen events had happened, the Light's Sacred Assembly decided to take a 2-hour break. During this 2-hour break, the Light's Sacred Assembly would conduct a large-scale chant. After hearing this news, no one complained anymore. The chant that was held once every 10 years was something everyone had been looking forward to. Now that there was such an opportunity, even if they had to wait a few more hours, they wouldn't mind. Just as the entire plaza was bathed in the chanting, Bailey Hongzhuang followed Lu Hongwei to the back of the plaza. Chapter 5398. I'd like to ask for your opinion. Are you willing to be the Holy Maiden of the Light? Lu Hongwei stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. Although this kind of situation was reasonable, no one would refuse, but he still had to ask. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. I'm willing. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, Lu Hongwei also quietly breathed a sigh of relief, smiling. Things have already become like this. If you don't want to, then I really don't know what to do. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands. I'm really sorry, President. She had other ways to fight for the position of the Holy Maiden of the Light, such as communicating with the president first. However, she chose this method to maximize the benefits for her family. However, she had hurt President Liu and the others in the process. She was actually quite apologetic about this. Lu Hongwei's gaze softened when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's guilty look. Speaking of which, I'm in the wrong. I didn't understand the situation all these years, which led to such a misunderstanding. Fortunately, Miss Bailey stood up today. Otherwise, I would have become a sinner of the light, sacred assembly. The old president had entrusted this important task to him because he trusted him. However, she had messed up the most important thing. Fortunately, there was still a chance to make up for it. Since that's the case, Miss Bailey, why don't you go get ready and change into the Holy Maiden of the Light's attire? We'll hold the succession ceremony later. Lu Hongwei smiled as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Towards this child, he was actually very appreciative. Thank you, President. I'll go get ready now. Di Beicheng greeted Bailey Hongzhuang as she walked over. Dear, what did President Liu say to you? Nothing much. He just asked if I was willing to become the Holy Maiden of the Light. Di Beicheng sighed in relief. Where are you going now? President Liu asked me to change into the Holy Maiden of the Light's attire. Just as they were talking, the Deacon of the Light Sacred Assembly walked over. Shi Hongqiao was at the front. Miss Bailey, congratulations. Shi Hongqiao smiled and cupped his hands. That distant expression did not let others know that they had known each other for a long time. Thank you, thank you. Xia Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Miss Xia, please follow me. I'll help you prepare the clothes for the Saintess of the Light. Thank you very much. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beicheng followed the deacon to prepare, while all the practitioners in the venue were immersed in the chanting. Beicheng followed the deacon to prepare. The cultivators in the venue were all chanting and chanting. Xiang Zhongtong waited until he finished chanting before everyone opened their eyes. They felt as if their bodies had been cleansed, and their thoughts became clearer. Their bodies felt indescribably comfortable. This feeling was somewhat similar to the light energy emitted when the Saintess crystal was lit up. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had not returned, many forces looked in the direction of the Di family and the Bailey family. They were eager to try. As for the forces closer to them, they began to try to get closer to them. Head of the Di family, congratulations. I didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be the real Holy Maiden of the Light. You really gave us a big shock today. Isn't that so? I've heard that Miss Xia's attainments in the light attribute have surpassed Xiao Shou. Now it's finally confirmed. It's really amazing. Chapter 5399. In the face of everyone's congratulations, Di Yujue just maintained a faint smile and didn't say much. This was how the world worked. There were many people who would put the icing on the cake, but once they fell, everyone would kick them when they were down. Previously, these guys thought that he would make a fool of himself, so they were very rude with their words. At this moment, knowing that the situation had changed, he naturally wouldn't take it to heart. However, the cultivators of the Di family, Lin family, and Bailey family were all excited at this moment. This feeling was like going from hell to heaven. They were worried that something would happen to Bai Li Hong, but they didn't expect to be given such a big surprise. Second cousin-in-law is really amazing. She directly snatched Xiao Shou's position as the Holy Maiden in a blink of an eye. I like to see how arrogant she can be when I see her again in the future. Lin Yi looked excited. In the past, when Xiao So always relied on this point to order people around, she was already very unhappy. However, no one could be on par with such an identity. Now that she didn't even have this identity, she only felt that her second cousin's initial decision was right. Hong Zhuang is indeed amazing. None of us thought that she would make such a plan before. It really shocked us. Lin Qianqian couldn't help but sigh. When she saw Bailey Hong Zhuang standing out today, she was actually extremely nervous. She was really bold. Second cousin-in-law has always been very powerful. I have known it for a long time. Lin Yi couldn't help but hum a tune. The feeling of being proud and elated was so satisfying. Bai Li Fan clenched his hands at this moment, and his face was full of excitement. He was so excited that he couldn't hide it even if he tried hard. For so many years, he had been looking for opportunities to make the family stronger, but he had never found a way. Now that his family had become the Holy Maiden, the rise was just around the corner. Just as everyone was talking, a beautiful figure slowly appeared on the high platform. Seeing this beautiful figure, everyone couldn't help but quiet down. Bailey Hongzhuang was still wearing a white long dress, which was also the costume of the Holy Maiden. However, this long dress was slightly different from Xiao Sou's previous dress, but it also revealed nobility and elegance. Her beautiful and refined face was even more soul-stirring after dressing up carefully. Her dark and deep pupils were overflowing with light, as if she could capture people's soul at a glance. From the moment she appeared, everyone's eyes were involuntarily attracted to her. Even a glance, they couldn't help but hold their breath. Such a beauty was comparable to a fairy of the 9 heavens that had descended to the mortal world, and the slightest carelessness would probably scare her away. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, and his eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of amazement. He had always known that his wife was extremely beautiful, but at this moment, he still couldn't help but be moved. Lu Hongwei stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang and smiled. Now, the succession ceremony officially begins. Applause sounded as if the previous waves had never happened. It was as if the position of the Holy Maiden belonged to Bailey Hongzhuang from beginning to end. From now on, Bailey Hongzhuang is the Holy Maiden of Light, the symbol of the Holy Maiden of Light. Lu Hongwei handed the Holy Maiden crystal to Bailey Hongzhuang. From now on, this Holy Maiden crystal will be handed over to you for safekeeping. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. Such a treasure is actually handed over to me. Chapter 5400. I will definitely do it. Bailey Hongzhuang looked serious. From the moment she decided to become the Saintess of the Light, she knew that this was a responsibility that she had to bear. Moreover, as the disciple of the true Saintess of the Light, she had to bring the power of light to greater heights. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's serious appearance, a trace of satisfaction appeared in Lu Hongwei's eyes. All this while, he did not know Bailey Hongzhuang very well and had very little contact with her. Apart from the last time when Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao So had a conflict, he only felt that this girl was very sincere. However, from the discussions of others, he also understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was a very good child. Now, let's carry out the blessing of the Saintess Crystal. As Lu Hongwei's voice fell, a trace of doubt flashed in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. What was this? She had never heard of it before. However, the deacons and the members of the Light Sacred Assembly stood on the high platform and formed a circle with Bailey Hongzhuang in the center. The high platform was undoubtedly very spacious. At this moment, all the cultivators of the Light Sacred Assembly were gathered here. Everyone dressed in white moved in unison. After everyone stood still, Lu Hongwei smiled faintly and said, "As the Saintess of the Light, you will receive the blessing of the Saintess Crystal. It will be very beneficial for you. You don't have to do anything. Just stand there." Bailey Hongzhuang only stood where she was. Then, chanting came from Lu Hongwei and the people around her. This chanting was different from the chanting for the cultivators below the platform. All the chanting power was superimposed on Bailey Hongzhuang. At that moment, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a lot of warm energy attached to her body. The faint warmth felt as if she was floating on the sea. Her body unconsciously relaxed as if she could float up at any time. As the chanting grew louder, the Saintess crystal began to change. Ripples began to spread from the Saintess crystal. The colorful energy appeared again, but it was stronger than before. Bailey Hongzhuang was bathed in the luster of the Saintess crystal. If everyone's chanting before made her body feel warm, then the warmth emitted by the Saintess crystal made her feel as if it was summer. She could clearly feel the energy cleansing her body and increasing her strength. Normally, if he used other methods to improve himself, once the speed increased, there would inevitably be some side effects. However, this Saintess crystal had a very mysterious effect. It was as if it was a kind of energy that was extremely pure. As long as it fused into the body, it could be directly absorbed without any effect. Bailey Hongzhuang had never felt so comfortable before. Immersed in this power, her strength also began to rapidly increase. When the crowd below the high platform saw this scene, their eyes were filled with amazement. Although they didn't know what the Saintess crystal's blessing was, they knew it wasn't simple. At such a solemn moment, everyone kept quiet and didn't dare to disturb. Soon, Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation began to break through. Seeing this, the crowd couldn't help but feel envious. How difficult was it to raise one's cultivation level normally? Chapter 5401. However, the breakthrough did not stop just like that. Not long after Bailey Hongzhuang's breakthrough, her strength once again broke through the barrier and broke through again. Crack! A soft sound was heard. Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation had broken through again. Compared to the crowd's surprise, Lu Hongwei and the others were relatively calm. This scene was within their expectations. The Saintess crystal's blessing was no ordinary item. Not only could it increase the Saintess's strength, but it could also cleanse the Saintess body. From now on, Bailey Hongzhuang's affinity with the power of light would greatly increase. With her full level of talent, her cultivation speed in the future would far surpass that of an ordinary person. Only some of the more talented cultivators would be able to compare with her. How difficult was it to have an extraordinary talent for cultivation? However, the Saintess crystal's chanting could directly transform Bailey Hongzhuang's body into one comparable to hers. The power of this was self-evident. After breaking through 3 levels in a row, Bailey Hongzhuang finally stopped breaking through. When the chanting stopped, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes and looked at everything in front of her again. She only felt that the power of light in the air was so intimate. It was as if the power of light would quickly enter her body as long as she casually summoned it. The crowd looked at the beautiful white figure and felt that there were some changes compared to before. As for the specific changes, no one could tell at the moment. They only felt that her entire body was more ethereal. The holy radiance seemed to be emitted from her body, making it unforgettable. When the ceremony ended, the crowd burst into heated discussions. Among the many guilds, the Holy Assembly was undoubtedly the most mysterious and the most desirable. Today's succession ceremony allowed everyone to see more of the Holy Assembly's magical aspects. The Saintess crystal's blessing is really amazing. It actually allowed Hongzhuang to break through 3 levels in a row. Shangguan Yingying's face was filled with excitement. 3 levels. If it were her own cultivation, it would take a lot of time. I now realize that the Holy Assembly is really amazing. I've never seen this kind of method before. Bailey Yunyin couldn't help but sigh. She wasn't a member of the Radiant Sacred Assembly, but she couldn't understand why everyone respected the Radiant Sacred Assembly so much. However, after seeing this scene, she suddenly understood. At the very least, this kind of method was not something that other guilds could use. Then you'll be able to see it more often in the future, because Hongzhuang is already the Saint of the Light. Mo Yunjue smiled faintly. The succession ceremony of the Saintess of Light came to an end amidst everyone's applause. Although there had been a lot of turbulence before, it ended perfectly in the end. However, the candidate had changed from Xiao Sou to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang did not return to her residence after the ceremony. Instead, she went to the headquarters of the Holy Light Assembly. Because Xiao So had always stayed here, she had never visited the Radiant Sage Assembly in the Piercing Wind City. However, this time, his identity was completely different. The headquarters of the Radiant Sacred Assembly was extremely large. The entire building was abnormally bright, showing the light and atmosphere of the Radiant Sacred Assembly everywhere. Saintess, these are the deacons of the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Let me introduce them to you. Lu Hongwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. Originally, the vice president should be present for the introduction. However, he knew that Tong Yinshu must have gone to the Xiao family at this moment, so he didn't mention it. This is Deacon Shihong Xiao. Chapter 5402. Bailey Hongzhuang greeted the attendants one by one. Among them, Shihong Xiao and the others were naturally very happy. On the other hand, the attendants who were on good terms with the Xiao family had rather awkward expressions. Of course, there were also quite a few people who took advantage of the situation and tried to curry favor with Bailey Hongzhuang. Every man for himself, and the heavens take the hindmost. At this time, they naturally hoped to protect their own futures. As for other things, how could they care about them? After the introductions, Bailey Hongzhuang followed Shihong Xiao into the room. Many things happened very suddenly today, but they have all been resolved. You must be tired, right? Have a cup of tea first. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down opposite Lu Hongwei. Someone had already prepared tea for them. The Radiant Saint is the symbol of our sacred assembly. Here, your position is the same as mine. It can even be said that your position is higher than mine. This is because the position of president can be changed at any time, but there is only one Radiant Saint. Seeing Lu Hongwei's calm appearance when he spoke of this, Bailey Hongzhuang was somewhat surprised. Logically speaking, people with high authority shouldn't want anyone to threaten their position. President Lu, you are a senior that I respect greatly. Lu Hongwei smiled faintly. I know that you are a young man who respects his elders. Although I haven't had much contact with you, there have been many rumors about you recently. Not only that, President Lu and Master Guan have praised you in front of me. In the future, the Radiant Sacred Assembly will also be your territory. You don't need to be reserved. I also hope that you can treat me as a kind senior. Lu Hongwei's attitude was very amiable. This feeling was slightly different from when Bailey Hongzhuang met him in the underground market. At that time, the distance between them seemed to have been broken. If you have anything you don't understand, you can ask me or any of the attendants. They will tell you. President, I want to know what I need to do in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. She was different from Xiao So. Xiao So often stayed in the Holy Light Assembly, so she knew a lot of things here like the back of her hand. However, she obviously didn't. Actually, you don't have to do anything. You're free. You can go anywhere you want. You don't have to stay in the Holy Assembly. However, if the Sacred Assembly needs you, I hope you can come as soon as possible. Actually, the Saintess is more of a spiritual leader of the Sacred Assembly. Everyone will feel more at ease knowing that you're here. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Don't worry, President. If you need my help in the future, I will definitely not refuse. As the Holy Maiden of the Light, you can make many decisions in the Sacred Assembly. Every month, you will receive abundant cultivation resources. To us, the most important thing for you is to increase your strength. Upon hearing this news, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed inwardly. No wonder Xiao So wanted to become the Saintess so much. It turned out that she didn't have to put in any effort at all, and yet she could reap many benefits. The only thing he needed to do was to increase his cultivation. She had always wanted to raise her cultivation. This wasn't something she wanted to do. During the conversation, Bailey Hongzhuang understood a lot of the situation. After that, she didn't stay in the Holy Light Assembly for long. Presumably, her family was still waiting for her. In fact, Lu Hongwei still needed to make a trip to the Xiao family. Chapter 5403. Bailey Hongzhuang was naturally aware of this. Although she did not think that Xiao So was pitiful, This guy had bullied countless people all these years by relying on his identity. Now, it was merely an eye for an eye. However, Chairman Liu felt that this was his mistake and also a reflection of his sense of responsibility. When Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her residence, she found that everyone was already waiting for her. As soon as she entered, she was surrounded by the crowd. "Hongzhuang, you're back." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with a faint smile. "Yes. Haha, you're really too impressive today. Who would have thought that you would be able to snatch the position of the Holy Maiden of Light at this time? This is simply a fatal blow to Xiao Shou." Lin Qianqian's face was full of joy. She and Xiao Shou had been at odds for so long, yet they had always been unable to do anything to each other. Now, things were great. In the future, they would not be able to jump up and down. "Hongzhuang, come quickly. We'll prepare a celebration for you." The whole restaurant had long been booked by Di Beichun. How could they not properly celebrate such a big event? In the blink of an eye, Bailey Hongzhuang was pulled to the main table and was drowned in congratulatory voices. Regardless of whether it was the Di family, the Lin family, or the Bailey family, their faces were brimming with joyful smiles. Today was truly a joyous day. I didn't expect it to be so lively here. I wonder if I'm welcome to celebrate. A light laughter sounded outside the door. Hearing this voice, Di Beichun and the rest looked outside and saw that Murong Jing, Chun Feng, and Jiang Wenyan had actually all arrived. At this moment, they were looking at them with smiles on their faces. "Naturally, you're most welcome. Come in and take a seat." "Haha, okay." The three of them looked at each other and immediately strode in. The whole restaurant was in jubilation, compared to the jubilation and liveliness of Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. The Xiao family was in a gloomy and miserable state. Looking at the previous decorations, Xiao Yanlong and the rest felt that it was extremely ironic. "Men, tear all of these down for me, so as not to be an eyesore," Xiao Yanlong said exasperatedly. The servants of the Xiao clan quickly began to clean up. The entire clan was immersed in sighs and groans. In the morning, everything was still so beautiful. Everyone was just waiting for the eldest miss to come back and celebrate. Now, it had actually become like this. The affairs of the world were really unpredictable. Who would have thought? Madame Xiao looked worriedly at Xiao Shou, who had fainted. Her face was full of anxiety. Shou fainted after suffering such a big blow. "I wonder when she will wake up." Madame Xiao looked at Xiao Yanlong and said, "Seiwu has never suffered such a big blow since she was a child. Moreover, she has always been proud of being the Holy Maiden of Light. Now that she has received such a big blow, will she be unable to recover?" Xiao Yanlong glanced at the unconscious Xiao Shou and sighed. "What can we do now that things have come to this? I only hope that Seiwu can be strong. The Di family is really too hateful. I knew that they would not accept this result so calmly. It turns out that they had already thought of a way to deal with it. In any case, we have been friends for so many years. How can they treat us like this?" Tears appeared in the corners of Madame Zhao's eyes. Today's scene not only made Xiao Shou feel very humiliated, even she felt very humiliated. Xiao Yanlong's expression was also very complicated. Who would have thought that the Di family would make a comeback under such circumstances? Chapter 5404. He suddenly wondered if you had already known about all of this, which was why he had rejected him so decisively back then. If he had known earlier, he would have put down his pride when Di Yujia asked for peace and let this matter go. At least this way, Shou's position as the Holy Maiden of Light would not have been taken away. Now, looking at the unconscious Xiao Shou on the bed, he really felt distressed. "Vice President, is there really no room for negotiation in this matter?" Madame Xiao still did not give up. She did not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang was that rare genius. Everyone's eyes fell on Tong Yinshu. In this situation, even if Xiao Shou woke up, her spirit would completely collapse. Unless she could take back the position of the Holy Maiden of Light, she would not be able to recover in a short time. Tong Yinshu sighed, but it's not that she didn't want to give everyone hope, but today's situation was so obvious that there was almost no room for negotiation. "You have also seen the situation today. Bailey Hongzhuang was not only able to light up the Holy Maiden crystal, but also prove that her talent is really at the maximum level. This was something she did not expect. If she had known it would be like this, she would have tried her best to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. Alas, Xiao Yanlong sighed, regret filling his heart. At the same time, Jun Hongcheng and Jun Lingxuan also rushed over. The speed at which they came back was only slightly slower than Xiao Yanlong and the others. How is so? Jun Hongcheng asked with concern. She should have fainted because she was too shocked. Her body is fine, Xiao Yanlong said with a complicated look. Today's matter, not to mention so, even we can't deal with it calmly. Jun Hongcheng's mood was actually terrible to the extreme. After working hard for so many years, it was not easy to form an alliance with the Xiao family. The most important thing was Xiao Sou's identity as the Holy Maiden of Light. Now, the title of the Saintess of the Light fell directly into the hands of the Di family. He really couldn't raise his head in front of Di Yujue. He suddenly felt that everything was a trap set up by Di Yujue. He knew that it was impossible for Xiao Sou to become the Saint of Light, so he gave up on the alliance with the Xiao family. This made him secretly happy, but he suffered such a blow. The Di family is really despicable. I'm afraid they already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang is the real Saint of Light, but they deliberately waited for a day like today to attack Sou. Jun Lingxuan clenched his fists, his face full of anger. He knew very well how much Xiao Sou had been looking forward to today's memorial ceremony, but it had been snatched away at the moment she had been looking forward to the most. No one would be able to accept it. Just as everyone was talking, Xiao Sou slowly woke up and saw the people around her at a glance. There was a trace of confusion in her clear eyes, and in the blink of an eye, she completely woke up. The next second, she quickly stood up and turned her eyes to Xiao Yanlong. Father, how is the position of the Holy Maiden of Light now? What happened later? Why am I here? Looking at Xiao Sou's excited and nervous appearance, Xiao Yanlong also couldn't bear it, but he still sighed and said, So, these things are in the past. Don't take it to heart in the future. Chapter 5405. It can't be like that, right? Xiao Sou looked at Madame Xiao, and Madame Xiao lowered her head. She then looked at Jun Lingxuan and found that everyone's reaction was the same. Finally, her eyes fell on Tong Yunshu. She grabbed Tong Yunshu's hand as if she was grasping at a life-saving straw. Master, tell me, they're all lying to me, right? Tong Yunshu reached out and hugged Xiao Sou, comforting her. So don't be sad, it's not a big deal to not be the Holy Maiden. No, I won't accept it. Xiao Sou burst into tears. How could she possibly snatch this position away? This clearly belongs to me. At this moment, Xiao Sou no longer cared about her image and sat on the ground, crying loudly. Seeing this, everyone's hearts sank. This situation made them feel very helpless and distressed. Unfortunately, no matter what they said at this time, it was useless. Unless they could take this position away from Xiao Sou, no matter what they said, it was meaningless. Madame Xiao continued to stay in the room to comfort Xiao Sou, while Xiao Yanlong and the others walked out. If they continued to stay, they would only feel distressed. Vice President Tong, I have a question. Jun Hongcheng suddenly spoke up. Tong Yunshu paused and turned to look at Jun Hongcheng. Master Jun, but it's fine. If Bailey Hongzhuang dies, will the position of the Holy Maiden belong to Sou? His dark eyes were filled with malice. Jun Hongcheng already had this idea when he saw the situation in the square. He could not let the Di family continue to be so arrogant. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang had already made the Di family the limelight. Now that she was crowned as the Holy Maiden, there was no need to think about it to know that many families would try to curry favor with her. Although many of these friendships were only on the surface, it was still affection in the end. Once more families were willing to ally with the Di family, it would be even more difficult for them to deal with the Di family. Even in the past, the Di family had never posed such a huge threat to him. He vaguely felt that if this continued, the Di family would completely break out of their control. Tong Yunshu was stunned when she heard Jun Hongcheng's words. She did not expect the Master Jun to have such thoughts. Xiao Yanlong's eyes lit up. In fact, his thoughts were the same as Jun Hongcheng's. However, the main reason why he wanted to do this was because he couldn't bear to see Xiao Se Wu sad. This was the daughter he had always doted on the most, and she was protected in his palm. When had she ever suffered such humiliation? Vice President Tong, you could just say it, Xiao Yanlong said. Tong Yinshu thought for a moment, then said, according to my judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang is the real holy maiden. Even if she falls, it will be very difficult for Sou to become the next holy maiden. Why? Xiao Yanlong asked unwillingly. You have seen the situation today. Sou is unable to light up the holy maiden crystal. This is the most important problem. Tong Yinshu sighed. How could she not wish for Xiao Sou to obtain this position? However, the situation was already very clear. Xiao Sou was only a talented cultivator of the light attribute and was not the holy maiden of light. Chapter 5406. President Liu may seem indifferent, but he's actually a very smart person. I'm sure he's already guessed that you'd do something like this, so he'll definitely think of a way to protect Bailey Hongzhuang and not let her be in any danger. Her dark eyes flickered with a thoughtful light. Tong Yinshu had been the Holy Assembly for so many years and understood Liu Hongwei's character very well. Liu Hongwei would never make such a mistake. Xiao Yanlong and Jun Hongcheng looked at each other. The two of them already had a tacit understanding in their hearts. They understood that everything Tong Yinshu said was true. Even if it was impossible for Xiao Sou to become the saintess of the Holy Light, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang disappeared from this world, it would still make Xiao Sou a little happier. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were undoubtedly very happy on this day. Everyone gathered together, drinking and chatting happily as they talked about life. Only after 3 rounds of drinking did the crowd disperse. At night, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun came to Di Yujue's room. Father, is there something you need from us? Di Yujue's eyes were filled with satisfaction as he looked at the 2 extremely compatible people in front of him. He now felt that his son's taste was extraordinarily good, and his daughter-in-law was also far more outstanding than ordinary people. Who knew how many people were envious of him now? He had found his son and brought back such an outstanding daughter-in-law. Hongzhuang, your performance today was truly stunning. Di Yujue praised. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Father, I'm only doing my best. I never thought that it would actually succeed. Now it seems that Xiao Sou has always been using your name. The real saintess of the holy light is you. At this moment, everyone understood this point. Previously, it was only because Bailey Hongzhuang had remained in the lower realm that Liu Hongwei had mistakenly raised Xiao Sou as the saintess of the holy light. Haven't I told you that my wife is very powerful? Di Beichun teased. Father, you don't have to worry at all. Di Yujue chuckled. That's right, you're right. Haha. After a round of laughter, Di Yujue's expression became a little more serious. Now that you've become the saintess of the holy light, the number of eyes on you will increase. You must be careful when you go out in the future. Di Yujue looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. I'm afraid that the Xiao family and the Jun family now hate us to the bone. Xiao Yanlong has always doted on Xiao Se Wu. This time, Xiao Se Wu has suffered such a big blow that he can no longer hold back. Father, are you saying that they will find a way to attack Hongzhuang? It's not that he'll think of a way, but that he's already done it. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were both startled when they heard this. When you were at the restaurant tonight, someone had already followed you to inquire about the news. However, I took care of them. Di Yujue said slowly. Although I guessed that the Xiao family wouldn't let me go, I didn't expect them to be so fast. His ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a cold light. His cold words were filled with killing intent. Xiao Yanlong can treat the previous matter as a quarrel between the younger generation. However, this time, the Xiao family's reputation has been greatly affected, so he couldn't hold back. Chapter 5407. The Holy Light Assembly? Di Beichun's eyes narrowed. Why would they be here? They should also be here to protect Hongzhuang. If I had not discovered it early, I believe they would have already dealt with her. Duju said with certainty. President Liu has known the Xiao family for many years and understands Xiao Yanlong's temper very well. He also guessed what he would do, which is why he sent people to protect you. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. She did not expect President Liu to be so meticulous. In the past, President Liu had always thought that Xiao Shou was the real Holy Maiden of Light. So the headquarters of the Holy Light Assembly gradually moved to the Piercing Wind City and had a very close relationship with the Xiao family. Now that you have become the Holy Maiden of Light, this has become a disadvantage. After all, there are many disciples of the Xiao family here, and there are also many spies. Your every move can be heard by them at any time. If you're going to stay here for the time being, then you must be extra careful. Duju's gaze was complicated. At the moment, this was the most troublesome point. According to my judgment, President Liu will definitely think of a way to solve this problem, but I'm afraid that it is not possible to solve it completely in a short period of time. There are also many Xiao family members in the Holy Light Assembly who are your enemies, especially the Vice President Tong Yinshu. She almost treats Xiao Shou as her own daughter, so if you have any dealings with her in the future, you must be more careful. Hearing Duju's explanation, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen both nodded. They also understood that the Holy Light Assembly was now inextricably linked to the Xiao family, and it was impossible to cut it off with a single slash. Father, don't worry. We will be extra careful. Di Beichen's expression was solemn and serious. I will protect Hongzhuang and not let anything happen to her. Xiao Yanlong and Jun Hongcheng are not soft-hearted people. Back then, the Jun family was able to make a move on you when you were still in your swaddling clothes, let alone now. However, since Chairman Liu is also taking care of you, it will be safer. You shouldn't stay here for too long. No one knows if they will go crazy and do something outrageous. Duju's gaze was deep and gloomy. He had known Jun Hongcheng for so many years, and he knew that Jun Hongcheng was a sinister and vicious person. Now that they were in the Xiao clan's territory, Jun Hongcheng probably wouldn't have too many misgivings. We should leave after we understand some of the things here. Bailey Hongzhuang had a serious expression on her face. She understood that as the patriarch, Dujue could not stay in the Piercing Wind City for too long. If he worried his family members, he would also feel uneasy. However, after he returned, he remembered that he still had to ask the president about the use of the Maiden Crystal and the relationship between the Maiden Crystal and his master. After she had figured out everything she wanted to know, she returned with the others. As the Holy Maiden of the Holy Light Assembly, she couldn't possibly return on the second day of her succession. It's good that you understand. I'll also remind you. Apart from that, we also need to find a spy in our family as soon as possible. Di Beichen's gaze was cold. He was not worried about other things, but if Bailey Hongzhuang's safety was threatened, he would definitely not tolerate it. Since you already have a target, let's think of a way to test him out. Ao Ling Xiao. Now you know how to hide behind a woman. You're really promising. Ao Junquang was a little jealous. He didn't understand why a guy like Ao Ling Xiao, who was abandoned by everyone, could get everyone's support. Such a guy should be spurned by everyone. Obviously, he had nothing and couldn't help the Di family. Why did Di Beichen always protect him like this? On the other hand, he had done so many things for the Jun family, but he had always been ordered around. He didn't have the same treatment as Ao Ling Xiao. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel depressed. Chapter 5409. Ao Ling Xiao, don't be too arrogant. This sentence directly pierced Ao Junquang's heart, and his face suddenly became very ugly. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you today. Looking at Ao Junquang's nervous look, Ao Ling Xiao chuckled. However, you know what you did in the past. I don't understand what you are talking about. Ao Junquang snorted coldly. You did such a beastly thing in the past, and now you are still shamelessly yelling in front of me. Even if you return to the family, you will definitely not have a good end. Ao Junquang, Now everyone knows the truth. It's useless for you to keep biting like this. Lin Yi was speechless. She suddenly felt that Ao Ling Xiao was really tricked by Ao Junquang at home in the past. At a glance, she could guess that this guy must be lying without blinking. Miss Lin, you're just deceived by Ao Ling Xiao. With that said, Ao Junquang took the opportunity to speed up and leave. He was naturally not afraid of Ao Ling Xiao, but he didn't know if the D family's cultivators were nearby. If a conflict broke out later, he would be the unlucky one. Looking at Ao Junquang's back, Ao Ling Xiao did not stop him. It would not take long for him to take everything back. However, he also understood that, as Ao Junquang said, if it weren't for Di Beichen and others to help him, it would be impossible for him to take everything back. He couldn't even appear in front of everyone now. He could only be a bug that couldn't be exposed to the light, curling up in the corner to survive. It was precisely because of this that he knew that Di Beichen and others were his benefactors. After he avenged his parents, no matter what Di Beichen and others asked him to do, he would do it even if he had to pay with his life. After Ao Junquang separated from Ao Ling Xiao, he went to the Xiao family without hesitation. If he didn't seek help from the Xiao family, he was afraid that he would be finished. If he couldn't stop Ao Ling Xiao, then his situation would be the same as Ao Ling Xiao's previous situation. There was no room for negotiation. Why are you looking for me? Jun Lingxuan looked at the sudden arrival of Ao Junquang, and his brows could not help but wrinkle. Right now, he was worried about Xiao So. Coupled with the Jun family's current situation, he was already in a terrible fix. He really had no interest in paying attention to Ao Junquang. Young Master Jun, you must help me. Ao Junquang nervously looked at Jun Lingxuan. I met Ao Ling Xiao earlier. He said that he would come to the Ao clan to cause trouble for me. What do you think we should do? It's just Ao Ling Xiao. This is your family's matter. Don't tell me you can't handle it. Jun Lingxuan said coldly. If it was only Ao Ling Xiao, I naturally wouldn't care about him. But now, he's using the D family's power to cause trouble for me. Once the D family makes a move, I won't be able to stop them. Young Master Jun, you must help me. At that time, I was listening to your orders. You can't just watch me die and not help me. Ao Junquang looked at Jun Lingxuan's indifferent appearance. He couldn't help but feel nervous. He had no way out. If he couldn't find help, then his fate could be imagined. You mean when the time comes, Di Beichen and the others will also come? It should be. Chapter 54:10. Jun Lingxuan, who originally did not plan to pay attention, suddenly had an idea after hearing this news. Now, whether it was his father or the Xiao family head, they all hoped to kill Bailey Hongzhuang to avenge Xiao So, but they never had the chance. He had also received the news yesterday. They only sent 2 people to inquire about the news. Although they also hoped that if there was a chance to assassinate Bailey Hongzhuang, they did not have much hope. However, after they left, they never returned. The reason was self-evident. It could be seen that the D family had already expected this situation and did not even give them a chance to withdraw. Therefore, he clearly noticed that his father's mood was even worse today. He believed that if Bailey Hongzhuang and the others went to the Ao family, Di Yujue and the others would not personally appear. After all, Xiu was from the Ao family. If the Jun family had appeared, it would be too exaggerated. If they went to cause trouble, they might be able to take the opportunity to get rid of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. This was undoubtedly the best. Ao Junquang saw that Jun Lingxuan was suddenly interested and nodded. Yes, it seems that they will definitely go. Jun Lingxuan's lips slowly raised into a playful smile. He patted Ao Junquang's shoulder. Don't worry. You've been working for us all these years. We won't leave you alone. Hearing this, Ao Junquang breathed a sigh of relief. His face was full of joy. Thank you, young Master Jun. I knew you would not leave me alone. Do you know when they plan to go? Jun Lingxuan asked. If he told this news to the Xiao family head, he believed that the Xiao family head would be more satisfied with him. Now that Xiao So did not have the position of the Holy Maiden, her status was naturally not as good as before. However, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang died, everything would return to the beginning. If they could kill Di Beichun as well, then they would not have to worry about anything in the future. This was the most joyous thing. I'm not too sure about that. Ao Junquang frowned. Previously, Ao Ling Xiao only said that he would be there soon, but he didn't say when. You don't even know the exact date. What's the point of telling me this? Jun Lingxuan glanced at Ao Junquang in disgust. His brows were filled with speechlessness. You wouldn't think that I would bring people to stay in the Ao family and wait for them to come, would you? I don't dare. Ao Junquang waved his hand, looking nervous. Jun Xiao, I don't think so, but what should I do? Of course it's time to find out what's going on. Jun Lingxuan patted Ao Junquang's head. You only have this chance. If you can't figure it out, I won't help you. Whether or not you want to protect everything you have now is up to you. As soon as his voice fell, Ao Junquang hurriedly said, Young Master Jun, I will immediately go and find out. Hurry up and go. In the next second, Ao Junquang quickly ran out of the house, not daring to delay for a moment. However, after going out, Ao Junquang fell into a dilemma. How could he figure it out? Even if he went to ask Ao Ling Xiao, Ao Ling Xiao would not tell him, right? Unless Ao Ling Xiao was stupid. Chapter 54:11. Bailey Hongzhuang had already left for the Holy Light Assembly. Since she did not intend to stay in the Piercing Wind City for long, she needed to get to the bottom of things as soon as possible. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang arrived, Lu Hongwei was not there yet. Instead, she met Shi Hongqiao. The two of them walked into the house. This house was originally prepared for the Holy Maiden. However, the default owner had always been Xiao So. Now, it had become her room. Holy Maiden, I heard that someone went to find trouble with you yesterday. You know about it too? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Shi Hongqiao in surprise. According to her father, those people came from the Holy Light Assembly. She immediately thought that they were sent by President Liu. She did not expect Shi Hongqiao to know about it too. Shi Hongqiao nodded and said, President Liu instructed me to do this. You should know that many people in the Holy Light Assembly have connections with the Xiao family. Naturally, President Liu could not hand this matter over to them. Therefore, this matter fell on my head. Speaking of which, President Liu would not normally hand such matters over to me. Now, Shi Hongqiao felt that being targeted by the Xiao family was a blessing in disguise. If it was not for the Xiao family, he would not have been chosen by Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, he would not have the opportunity to be put in an important position. Now that he saw that the people who were originally proud of relying on the Xiao family were in a state of panic, he felt exceptionally happy. Every dog has its day. Sometimes what was set in stone would not necessarily happen. Hearing Shi Hongqiao's words, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. So that's the case. Shi Hongqiao nodded. Holy Maiden, you have now become a thorn in the side of the Xiao family. It is actually very dangerous to stay in the Piercing Wind City. You must be more careful. I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Although Shi Hongqiao was just taking advantage of the situation to cooperate with them, she knew that Shi Hongqiao was sincere. He could be considered as her confidant in the Holy Light Assembly. Actually, I do not intend to stay in the Piercing Wind City for long. The Xiao family's influence is spread across every corner of the city. My every move will be seen by them. If we stay here, they might find an opportunity to target us. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang already had a plan in mind, Shi Hongqiao was relieved. That's good. By the way, did the vice president come back? No. Shi Hongqiao shook his head. Yesterday, after the vice president left with the Xiao family's team, he hasn't appeared. Everyone is also discussing this matter. Saintis, you have to be wary of the vice president in the future. She is Xiao Sou's master, so her attitude will definitely be the same as that of the Xiao family. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. She's such a biased person who can't differentiate right from wrong. I'm really curious as to how she became the vice president. Actually, the reason why Tong Yinshu was able to become the vice president is partly because of Xiao So. Oh, Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. She always thought that Xiao Shou relied on Tong Yinshu to be where she is today. She never expected that Tong Yinshu also relied on Xiao Shou to become the vice president. When the vice president became Xiao Shou's master, she was still not the vice president. It was only because Xiao Shou was recognized as the next holy maiden that her influence gradually expanded. Chapter 54:12. In that case, the two of them are mutually beneficial. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. However, Xiao Shou no longer has the identity of the holy maiden. If possible, she did not wish to have a vice president who would always create trouble for her. She had already seen how protective Tong Yinshu was. She would not change her attitude towards her just because her identity had changed. On the contrary, Tong Yinshu was probably still thinking about how to help Xiao Shou regain the position of the Holy Maiden. That was the most interesting thing. Shi Hongqiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's expression and guessed what she was thinking. He immediately said, "Actually, the vice president's way of doing things is indeed problematic." Previously, because of Xiao Shou's unusual identity, no one said anything. However, everything has changed now. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shi Hongqiao looked at each other, and the corners of their lips suddenly burst into a smile. It seemed that they had the same goal. In that case, Manager Shi already has an idea? Actually, after the incident in the underground market, the president has already been suspicious of the vice president's way of doing things. Now that the Holy Maiden is already in the Sacred Assembly, it is not very appropriate for the vice president to be missing. If there are more rumors about the vice president at this time, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. She had to admit that the older the ginger, the wiser. Shi Hongqiao was too experienced in dealing with these matters. He probably already had an idea. However, this also proved that Shi Hongqiao was already very dissatisfied with Tong Yinshu. Of course, if it were not for Tong Yinshu, the Xiao family would not have dared to be so arrogant. "Then I will leave this matter to you, Manager Shi. Don't worry, Holy Maiden. I will definitely satisfy you." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. "I believe in you." Not long after, President Liu arrived at the Sacred Assembly. "Holy Maiden, you're already here." Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had arrived at the Sacred Assembly so early, Liu Hongwei was slightly surprised. "I came so early to thank you for your kindness, guild leader," Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile as she cupped her fists. Liu Hongwei naturally understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant. "Speaking of which, this matter was caused by my mistake back then. Moreover, you are now the Saintess of the Light. I have an obligation to protect you. No matter what, I am very grateful for President Liu's kind intentions. By the way, President, you went to see Miss Xiao yesterday. How is she now?" Liu Hongwei shook his head. "This matter has really hit her too hard. I'm afraid she won't be able to recover for a while, but I believe she'll be fine after some time." Regarding this, he truly felt very helpless. All these years, he had watched Xiao Shou grow up bit by bit. Now that he saw Xiao Shou become like this, he was also heartbroken. However, when he found out about this result, he was inexplicably glad. He was glad that Xiao Shou was not the real Saintess of the Light. Perhaps because she had become famous at a young age, Xiao Shou was now somewhat lawless. Back then, he had been worried whether Xiao Shou could really bear the responsibility of being the Saintess of the Light. However, because he had no other choice, he could only let the situation develop. Chapter 54:13. Although he did not know much about Bailey Hongzhuang, most of the rumors about Bailey Hongzhuang were positive. Moreover, Liu Yuhai and the rest admired Bailey Hongzhuang so much, and there must be a reason for it. Liu Yuhai and the rest were experienced people, and they were very accurate in judging people. He rarely saw Liu Yuhai complimenting a young person in front of him. Before this, he was already curious about Bailey Hongzhuang, and he did not expect her to become the Holy Maiden of Light. It was really fate. The most important thing was that after getting along with Bailey Hongzhuang for 2 days, he also appreciated her very much. "I thought about it carefully, and it might not be appropriate for the headquarters of the Holy Assembly to continue to be located in the Piercing Wind City. I will find a place to move the headquarters as soon as possible." I believe it will be better for you and Xiao So. As the Holy Maiden of Light, Bailey Hongzhuang shouldered the responsibility of bringing the Holy Assembly to greater heights. No matter what, he would not let Bailey Hongzhuang be in any danger. Once the Holy Assembly moved out of the piercing Wind City, everyone would reduce the relationship between the Holy Maiden of Light and Xiao So. Over time, the influence of this matter would become smaller and smaller. Seeing that Lu Hongwei was planning to move the headquarters of the Holy Assembly away, Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked. However, after thinking about it carefully, she understood why he did it. This was indeed a way to solve the problem once and for all. In this way, she would not have to worry about her safety when she went to the Holy Assembly in the future. I will listen to you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and did not say much. This kind of thing should be left to the president. You came here today because you have something to ask me? Lu Hongwei smiled faintly as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. He didn't believe that this girl would come all the way here just to thank him. Seeing that Lu Hongwei seemed to have seen through her, Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged and said, President, you are really amazing. I have not shown anything, and you have already guessed it. Go ahead, what do you want to ask? Guild leader, I would like to ask about the Holy Maiden Crystal. Saintess Crystal? Lu Hongwei nodded. He walked to the table and sat down. The Saintess Crystal is a sacred object of our radiant society. It contains extremely pure radiant energy and has a purifying effect. What do you want to know about me? I would like to know the reason why you gave me this Saint Spirit Crystal for safekeeping. Actually, the Holy Maiden Crystal has always been in the custody of the Holy Maiden. After the first Holy Maiden of the Light passed away, the Holy Maiden Crystal was handed over to the president for safekeeping. Until you appeared, it was handed over to you. The Saintess chanting was different from our usual chanting, and with the Saintess Crystal's effect, the effect would be even better. Not only that, it also has a healing effect. However, this effect can only be displayed in the hands of the Saintess. This is also the reason why we gave it to you. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. The Saintess Crystal actually has healing properties? Lu Hongwei nodded slightly. Yes, its healing power is very strong, but only the Saint of Light can do it. Over the years, we have tried to use other methods to make it work, but to no avail. I see. Chapter 54:14. The healing effect of the Holy Lady Crystal is very powerful and often has unexpected effects. Back then, the Holy Lady of the Light used the Holy Lady Crystal to save many people. However, just like you, the previous Holy Lady of the Light was also good at medicine. Therefore, when I heard that you were also good at medicine, I felt that everything was destined. Lu Hongwei's face was filled with emotion and a comforting smile. Back then, when he found out that Xiao So was not good at medicine and had no interest in it, he felt helpless. This was because it meant that the Holy Lady Crystal could not be used. Even if the Holy Lady Crystal had such power, it could not be used if the Holy Lady did not know how to use it. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, all these problems were solved. In fact, after knowing the truth, he realized that everything he had worried about was unnecessary. The reason why he felt so helpless was because he had mistaken the wrong person. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood what Lu Hongwei meant, and her lips curled into a bright and warm smile. President, is the Holy Lady Crystal passed down from generation to generation? Bailey Hongzhuang asked curiously. Even though she knew that the Holy Lady Crystal was an item of inheritance, she still felt that the Holy Lady Crystal was related to her master. Actually, the upper realm's cultivation attribute was only a matter of a few hundred years ago. This was discovered when the seniors were exploring the Immortal Cloud secret realm. The Saintess Crystal was obtained from the Immortal Cloud secret realm. I also found out about this from ancient records. It has been too long, and many things can no longer be known. Since the Holy Lady Crystal is now in your care, you can study it to see if it has any other uses. So far, most of the uses that we know of were discovered by the previous Holy Lady of the Light. Lu Hongwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with anticipation. So far, there has only been one Holy Lady of the Light, and you are the second. I believe that there are many things waiting for you to discover. I also hope that under your leadership, the Holy Assembly of the Light will become stronger. President, I'm afraid that I can't handle this heavy responsibility. I believe you. You are the destined one. Liu Hongwei's expression was serious. From Bailey Hongzhuang's sudden rise to where she was now, it had already proven that she was a person with extraordinary luck. If it were anyone else from the lower realm, even if they had a certain amount of talent, it would definitely not be possible to become a famous figure in a short period of time. However, Bailey Hongzhuang completed all of this with ease, as if nothing could stop her. No matter what, I will do my best. Bailey Hongzhuang pursed her lips and smiled. Her dark and bright eyes were filled with seriousness and determination. As the disciple of the Saint of Light, she would definitely do her best to spread the power of light. After Ao Junquang left the Shao clan, he sank into a deep sense of helplessness. Even if he racked his brains, he still couldn't figure out how to find out from Ao Lingxiao when they planned to come to the Ao clan. In fact, as long as Ao Lingxiao's brain wasn't squeezed by a door, he wouldn't have said this. Since he couldn't get an answer by asking directly, how about he beat around the bush? Chapter 54:15. He grew up with Ao Lingxiao since he was a child. He knew very well that this guy was not good and lecherous. In addition, Lin Yi and Ao Lingxiao were so close now. This method wouldn't work at all. As for the rest, he couldn't think of it at all. Young Master Jun gave this task to me, but I can't complete it at all. Ao Junquang was about to collapse. If he didn't figure this out, Jun Lingxuan wouldn't help him. But this is simply an endless loop. After thinking about it, Ao Junquang even felt that Jun Lingxuan wasn't helping him at all, so he found such a reason. Forget it. I don't care if he says it or not. I will go and ask first. Ao Junquang stood up gloomily. Anyway, he couldn't think of any way, so he might as well go all out. When Ao Lingxiao saw Ao Junquang appear in front of him, he was also surprised. Logically speaking, Ao Junquang should be trying to avoid him now. Now, he actually took the initiative to find him. Could it be that he set up a trap? Ao Junquang, didn't you run very fast just now? How dare you appear in front of me now? Ao Lingxiao looked at Ao Junquang sarcastically and playfully. He wanted to see what this guy was up to. Ao Junquang, who was thinking about how to anger Ao Lingxiao to know the specific time, couldn't control his emotions after hearing this. This guy really makes people want to slap him when he opens his mouth. If Ao Lingxiao knew Ao Junquang's thoughts at the moment, he would feel very innocent. The reason why he could anger the other party when he opened his mouth was that he learned from Beiqian and others. The subtle influence was still very terrifying. Ao Lingxiao, even if you have the D family backing you now, you don't have to be so arrogant. The power of outsiders is not your own power after all. In the end, you're just a dog in the eyes of others. You are so happy. Are you so proud of it? Ao Junquang's eyes were deep, revealing resentment and disgust. He had always hated this younger brother of his. Obviously, he was the eldest son, but his father wanted a hand over the family master's position to him. He never considered his situation and thoughts. Why? In the past, he had asked himself countless times, in what way was he inferior to Ao Lingxiao? Even if his cultivation talent was slightly inferior to Ao Lingxiao's, it didn't matter. Moreover, their cultivation resources had been unequal since they were young. Ao Lingxiao's cultivation resources had always been more than his own. This was a fact that everyone knew. As for his mother, because Ao Lingxiao was the youngest son, he had to give in to him. On what basis? This thought had lingered in his mind for many years. He couldn't understand. They were obviously blood brothers, yet there was such a big gap between them. Was it because he was born earlier than Ao Lingxiao? This kind of unwillingness and jealousy gradually grew in his mind. From an initial small sapling, it eventually grew into a towering tree. It crazily engulfed his heart and finally turned into a strong hatred. He hated Ao Lingxiao, but he hated his parents even more. It was precisely because they were close relatives that all of this was even more unforgivable. Chapter 54:16. Listening to A.O. Zhengquang's words, A.O. Ling Zhao's face turned gloomy. Are you talking about yourself? A.O. Ling Zhao stared at A.O. Zhengquang. I am indeed relying on the power of the D family, and I understand that all of this does not belong to me. But so what? In my opinion, even if the power of the A.O. family falls into the hands of the D family, it is still better than falling into the hands of a guy like you who is worse than a beast. What did our parents do to you? If the position of the head of the family is what you want, you can just say it. Why do you need to do such an unforgivable thing with outsiders? Until now, A.O. Ling Zhao still could not understand why his brother, whom he had always trusted, would become like this. Can just say it. A.O. Zhengquang chuckled. A.O. Ling Zhao, don't think that you can lead me into a ditch by saying such nonsense. You were the one who killed our parents. I am enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens and avenging our parents. The family will never fall into your hands. A.O. Zhengquang's eyes were firm and crazy. Even if he destroyed himself and the entire A.O. family, he would not let all of this fall into A.O. Ling Zhao's hands. Even if he was a sinner, so what? There was no turning back. Moreover, he did not plan to turn back. Looking at A.O. Zhengquang's solemn vow, A.O. Ling Zhao's eyes dimmed. Even if it had been so long, A.O. Zhengquang still did not have the slightest regret. If his parents saw this scene, they would be even more heartbroken. The truth will be revealed sooner or later. No matter how much you insist, it is useless. I will take back everything that is mine, A.O. Ling Zhao said coldly. Tell me, when are you going to come to the A.O. family? At that time, we will have a fair fight and let the family know who is more outstanding between you and me. A.O. Zhengquang stared at A.O. Ling Zhao. Our grievances will be completely resolved. I have the same plan. A.O. Ling Zhao narrowed his eyes, revealing an endless murderous aura. He would definitely end all of this with his own hands. However, just as he was about to blurt it out, he suddenly stopped. The reason why you're saying so much, could it be that you want to figure out which day you're planning to go? A.O. Ling Zhao looked at A.O. Zhengquang with vigilance. Ever since that incident, he and A.O. Zhengquang hadn't talked so much. If he hadn't suddenly reacted, he might have been fooled. When A.O. Zhengquang saw that A.O. Ling Zhao was about to blurt out, there was a hint of excitement in his eyes. However, he did not expect that at that critical moment, A.O. Ling Zhao would suddenly react. Even if I know which day you are going, I still have to inform my clansmen first, A.O. Zhengquang said calmly. Hearing this, A.O. Ling Zhao sneered. He didn't believe that A.O. Zhengquang's thinking was so simple. Stop dreaming. I will never tell you. A.O. Zhengquang had been relying on the Jun family for a long time now. If they knew when he would go, they might not set up an ambush. He was already grateful that Di Beichen and the others were willing to help him. If they were to encounter such danger again, that would be unacceptable. Aren't you a coward? You don't even dare to have a fair fight. A.O. Zhengquang said coldly. You don't need to provoke me. It doesn't work on me. A.O. Ling Zhao had seen through everything. Naturally, he would not say anything more. Chapter 54:17. After A.O. Ling Zhao came back, he immediately told Di Beichen about this matter. In my opinion, A.O. Zhengquang must have contacted Jun Lingxuan before coming here. That's why his attitude changed so much. He wanted to know the specific time from me, so that he could prepare. It seems that A.O. Zhengquang really can't think of a way, so he did this. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. It was because he really couldn't think of a way that he decided to fight. Otherwise, based on his daily contact with A.O. Zhengquang, it was almost impossible. Speaking of which, we have to thank A.O. Zhengquang. Di Beichen's lips slightly raised, and he suddenly smiled. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and A.O. Ling Zhao looked at Di Beichen in confusion. Thank him? Yes, he helped us think of a good way. Beichen, are you planning to use this matter to deal with the Xiao and Jun family? A.O. Ling Zhao asked. When the time comes, Jun Lingxuan will definitely go. If we can kill him, it will be tantamount to solving a big problem. This is not the most important thing. Di Beichen smiled. The most important thing is that this can help our family find out where the cancer is. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. You plan to use this matter to find the real traitor? Yes. Di Beichen nodded. We have been thinking about this problem for a long time. Finding him as soon as possible is good for all of us. Originally, it was not a problem to be vigilant, but now that the Xiao and Jun family were watching Hongzhuang, he had to remove all the hidden threats. No matter how they guarded, as long as there was a spy in the family, no one could guarantee when the news would leak out. Therefore, the only way was to completely remove this hidden danger. A.O. Lingxiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's tacit understanding. He thought carefully and suddenly understood. You were planning to take a break? Smart. Since he already had a target in mind, Di Beichen handled it very cleverly. He quietly passed the information to the person he wanted to let know without leaving a trace. After learning that Di Beichen had set the bait so easily, Bailey Hongzhuang was relieved. We just need to wait a few more days and we'll know the real result. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her eyes. If it's really the person you think it is, what do you plan to do? If it's really him, I want to know why he would do that. Even though he already had a candidate in mind, Di Beichen still couldn't figure it out. It was normal for there to be conflicts between family members, but it was hard to understand why a family member would collude with an enemy to destroy the stability of the family. Moreover, the family had never mistreated them. Although A.O. Junquang had done something worse than a beast, he could still understand it if he thought about it carefully. However, he really couldn't understand this person. You will understand when the time comes, Bailey Hongzhuang said lightly. I always feel that there must be a reason that no one knows. Perhaps there are some things that you have overlooked from the beginning. Actually, I really don't want it to be him. Di Beichen sighed. His eyes were as deep as the sea, revealing helplessness and sighing. Chapter 54:18. Ever since the succession ceremony, Vice President Tong Yun Shu had not returned to the guild. The matters that should have been Tong Yun Shu's responsibility could only be put aside for the time being because she had not appeared. President, I know that Vice President Tong is very close to Miss Xiao, but she can't ignore the matters of the Sacred Assembly just because of this, right? That's right. Miss Xiao used to be the Holy Maiden, so we can understand why Vice President Tong would follow her around. But now, the real Holy Maiden is Miss Bailey, and Vice President Tong still has such an attitude. I don't think it's appropriate. The two deacons had annoyance and helplessness on their faces, obviously very dissatisfied with Tong Yunshu's absence. Hearing their words, Lu Hongwei frowned slightly, since you know that Vice President Tong is very close to Sou, and now that Sou has suffered such a big blow, it's normal for her to be concerned. But President, other than this, I have something else to report to you. What is it? All these years, Vice President has been suppressing us, controlling us to give up our positions to Xiao Clan. If we don't agree, they will humiliate us in every possible way. Previously, they forced Deacon Shi to take on a title and drove him out. If it wasn't for Deacon Zhao's mistake, Deacon Shi wouldn't have returned. Not only him, the other deacons were in the same situation, but they were not as lucky as Deacon Shi, so they did not have the chance to return. To be honest, if not for the president's return, we would have left when Deacon Shi was driven out. Even if we did not leave, in the end, we would be slandered and forced to leave. It's better to leave cleanly. At least we can preserve our reputation. Following the first deacon's words, the other deacons also voiced out their thoughts one after another. All these years, they had been too aggrieved. The president was not in the Sacred Assembly all year round, so the vice president had the power to control the Sacred Assembly. Coupled with the Xiao clan's excessive actions, they did not even have the power to resist. Now, that everyone kicks a man who is down, they did not have to care about the Xiao clan's power. Lu Hongwei, who didn't take it to heart at first, suddenly became serious after hearing this. His gaze finally landed on Shi Hongqiao. Deacon Shi, is what they said true? Facing Lu Hongwei's sharp gaze that seemed to be able to pierce through one's heart, Shi Hongqiao was extremely calm, revealing a trace of sadness and lamentation. Guild leader, what happened back then is already in the past. However, I was indeed humiliated by them in every possible way. I was forced to give them a title and stripped of my status as a deacon. This time, if it weren't for your return, I wouldn't have come back either. Shi Hongqiao's voice was very flat. There was no indignation, only sadness and helplessness, as if he was disappointed in something he had always believed in. That kind of disappointment spread from the bottom of his heart. There was no anger in it, but there was a sadness in it. Compared to everyone's angry words, Shi Hongqiao's words shocked Lu Hongwei even more. Even though he had seen Tong Yunshu's protection the last time, he had never thought that things would be this serious. I've been back before. Why haven't you guys ever mentioned it? Lu Hongwei asked. Chapter 54:19. Look carefully in the current sacred assembly. How many people have the surname Xiao? Shi Hongqiao's voice was filled with self-mockery. We understand that among all the families, the Xiao family has the most light attribute cultivators. But don't you think that this number is a little too shocking? In these years, under the influence of others, many people have been replaced, and some have even disappeared without a trace. Not only the headquarters, even the branches are in the same situation. If not for the fact that young Miss Xiao is no longer the Saint of Light, we would be going against her by then. Would we have a good ending? Every word Shi Hongqiao said was like a thorn piercing into Lu Hongwei's heart, finally piercing it full of holes. He always thought that everything he did was for the sake of the sacred assembly, but he never thought that the sacred assembly would become like this. But he never cared too much about it. He thought that whether it was Tong Yunshu or Xiao Shou, they were the same as him, hoping for the sacred assembly to become stronger and better. However, he seemed to be wrong. Not everyone was so selfless. Xiao Shou completely treated the sacred assembly as the power behind her, only wanting to take it for herself, and never thought of anything else. Everything he did was for the sake of the Holy Light Assembly, while everything Xiao Shou did was to use the Holy Light Assembly as a weapon that could be used. The two were completely different. Go and bring me the list of current members. Lu Hongwei ordered in a deep voice. He had indeed neglected many things all these years, and thought that it would be very convenient for the sacred assembly to be located here. With Tong Yunshu and Xiao Shou holding the fort, he did not need to worry about anything else. Now it seemed that everything was too simple. When he promoted Tong Yunshu to vice president, it was because of her persistence in pursuit of light energy, but he did not realize that many things had already changed under the influence of others. Very quickly, someone brought the list over, and Lu Hongwei immediately flipped through it. However, when he noticed the large group of people with the surname Xiao, his eyes darkened. There were already so many people with the surname Xiao, and those who were on good terms with the Xiao family. Suddenly, he understood that what Shi Hongqiao and the rest said was the truth. In the current sacred assembly, many things were already under their control, and he did not even realize these changes under the influence of others. After a long while, Lu Hongwei raised his head, but he seemed to have aged a lot in an instant. I understand. I will handle this matter. You can do your work without worries. Yes, President. When Bailey Hongzhuang came to the sacred assembly, she heard the news from Shi Hongqiao. President did not give you any orders and only said that he will handle it himself. Shi Hongqiao nodded. Yes, from the looks of it, the president seems to be very disappointed in this matter. Although he hated Tong Yunshu, he still respected Lu Hongwei's heart. He still had respect for Lu Hongwei, Lu, with Lu. Lu Hongqiao, sun, Chao, sacred, with Lu with the assembly with sacred, since the guild leader has said that he will take care of it. He will definitely take care of it. Chapter 54:20. None of the people who could become the president were simple, and they would not be so weak either. Even if this matter was a blow to him, he was still resolute and decisive in his actions. In fact, everything was just as Bailey Hongzhuang had predicted. Lu Hongwei began his actions a day later. The next day, Lu Hongwei directly announced the removal of Tong Yunshu's position as the vice president. At the same time, Many cultivators in the sacred assembly who had colluded with the Shao family or the Shao family would be demoted or expelled. The name list was announced almost immediately, and this undoubtedly caused a huge uproar in the sacred assembly. Shi Hongqiao and the others could not help but be pleasantly surprised when they saw this decision. The president was really ruthless when he did things. On the contrary, the Shao family and the other cultivators immediately made a fuss. They only wanted to find Lu Hongwei and ask for the reason. We didn't do anything. Why are we being punished like this? Should we be treated like this just because Bailey Hongzhuang became the Saintess of the Light? Even if our young miss lost her position as the Saintess of the Light, she's still a cultivator of the light attribute. Treating us like this is too disappointing. Everyone on the name list started to make a fuss. They could not accept this result at all. However, Lu Hongwei did not explain anything in the face of everyone's questioning. Very quickly, another piece of paper was posted. When everyone saw the contents of the paper, the cultivators who were making a fuss all shut up. Each of their expressions was uglier than the last. It was not because of anything else, but because the reason for their punishment was clearly listed on this piece of paper. Almost everything that they had done during this period of time was written down. In fact, when they gathered together, they were very clear about who had done something wrong. However, now that it was written in black and white, they could clearly see who had done something shameful at a glance. This was not a normal embarrassment. When Shi Hongqiao and the others saw this scene, they were stunned. They didn't expect the president to be so fast. They also didn't expect the president to investigate so many things in a short day. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the content written in black and white. Her heart was also filled with shock. Master, President Lu's actions are just as you guessed. He's swift and decisive, not giving anyone a chance to breathe at all. Xiao Hei's eyes widened. She did not expect that these guys from the Holy Assembly would do so many shameful things behind their backs. They even kidnapped women. It was really disgusting. The president naturally has his own methods and information. It's just that he trusted Tong Yinshu too much, so he didn't investigate this matter in detail. As long as he wants to understand, it will only take a short time. Bailey Hongzhuang squinted her eyes. Every president was extremely powerful. Moreover, Lu Hongwei was the president of the Holy Light Assembly. Not only that, but he also had a certain degree of friendship with the guild leaders of the various guilds. If he wanted to learn about these matters, he had plenty of ways to do so. Those fellows who were hooting just now are too ashamed to continue speaking now. Chapter 54:21. Now that the evidence had been used against them, everyone did not have the face to continue staying here, because no matter who it was, they would have to leave after making such a mistake. Tong Yinshu had been staying in the Shao family for the past few days. On one hand, she was worried about Xiao So, and on the other hand, she did not want to go back and face Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had become the Holy Maiden, her status was one level higher than hers. She could still remember clearly how she had scolded Bailey Hongzhuang. If she were to go back now, she would not have any face left. However, she did not expect that her position as the vice president would be removed just because she had not returned to the Holy Light Assembly for a few days. Ling Sun, are you sure? Xiao So looked at Jun Lingxuan in disbelief. The Holy Light Assembly removed my master's position? That's impossible. I'm not sure. Jun Lingxuan's face was solemn and serious. This news is spread throughout the entire Piercing Wind City. The vice president has been removed from her position, and many other members of the Holy Light Assembly have also been removed from their positions. It has already caused an uproar in the city. Master did not do anything wrong. What right do they have to remove her from her position? Xiao Sou's face was filled with anger and dissatisfaction. Don't tell me that just because Bailey Hongzhuang has become the Holy Maiden, they want to kick us out. The president will not mix personal and private matters. Tong Yinshu said resolutely. I know the president's character very well. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang has become the Holy Maiden, he will not allow Bailey Hongzhuang to mess around like this. Then what we do now? Xiao So looked at Tong Yinshu anxiously. She did not have the face to go out and meet anyone now, but when she thought of Bailey Hongzhuang's current status, she felt extremely indignant. Hence, she placed her only hope on Tong Yinshu. Even if Tong Yinshu could make Bailey Hongzhuang unhappy, she would still be happy. Once Tong Yinshu lost her identity, she would no longer be able to do this. On the contrary, they would become a complete joke in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. I'll return to the sacred assembly first. Tong Yunshu's expression was serious, her eyes sharp. Bailey Hongzhuang must have used my absence from the sacred assembly to make an issue out of it. As long as I return now, everything should still be salvaged. Master, you should go back quickly, Xiao So hurriedly said. After Tong Yunshu returned to the radiant sacred assembly, many gazes fell on her. Look, the vice president is finally back. He must have heard the news, so he hurried back, right? What vice president? Don't forget, she's no longer the vice president. Tong Yunshu's face turned cold when she heard the discussions. She immediately walked to the second floor of the radiant sacred assembly. She wanted to reason with the president. Isn't this Vice President Tong? At the top of the stairs, Bailey Hongzhuang leaned against the railing and looked at Tong Yunshu with a forced smile. Bailey Hongzhuang. Tong Yunshu gritted her teeth as she glared at Bailey Hongzhuang. She spat out each word. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you've become the sacred lady of the Radiant Sacred Assembly. The Radiant Sacred Assembly isn't something that someone like you can control. Tong Yunshu, don't try to pin such a big hat on me. If you want to say that I can do whatever I want, that's because of what you and Xiao So did back then. Chapter 54:22. Her beautiful and otherworldly face was calm and indifferent, revealing a trace of indifference and alienation. However, these words pierced Tong Yunshu's heart, causing her already ashen face to turn even more purple. In the next moment, Tong Yunshu directly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, wanting to pass by her and go to the second floor. However, just as she was about to pass by, Bailey Hongzhuang's pleasant voice rang out once again. You're late. The president has already left. Do you think I'll believe this kind of excuse? Tong Yunshu coldly said. It's up to you to believe it or not. Bailey Hongzhuang indifferently left behind a sentence, then walked down the stairs, as if she was too lazy to say anything else. Tong Yunshu quickly rushed up, rushing into the room without even knocking on the door. However, there was no sign of Lu Hongwei. Hongzhuang, I heard that President Lu has already removed Tong Yunshu's position as the vice president. Shang Guanying eagerly moved to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, her beautiful face filled with excitement. Bailey Hongzhuang slightly nodded. That's right, the Sacred Assembly has eliminated many problems today, and the Xiao family's power in the Sacred Assembly has been greatly affected. It's expected the Xiao family should have expected it too, but I didn't think that Tong Yunshu would be affected as well. Di Beichun faintly smiled. Success is due to the same person, and failure is also due to the same person. Xiao So has received quite a big blow this time. I can already imagine how angry Xiao So is right now, but when the Sacred Assembly's headquarters move away, I'm sure she'll be even angrier. When that time comes, you all have to be prepared. Xiao So will definitely hate that she can't kill you all. When they head to the AO family, there will definitely be many of them. Xiren was a little worried. If it was said that it was still a small fight among the younger generation, then after what had happened, things had already changed. Don't worry, we can see how they are doing when the time comes, Di Beichun said. Without the support of the Holy Assembly, the alliance between the Xiao family and the Jun family is not so worrisome. However, there is still a problem, and that is your family's land of heritage. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed faintly. Although she had successfully snatched the identity of the Saint of Light, she still did not know whether her and Di Beichun's blood would work. In addition, if he wanted to open the land of heritage, he would need tokens from the Xiao family and the Jun family. Di Beichun also understood Bailey Hongzhuang's worries. He comforted her. Everything will be fine when we get there. Our current situation is much better than before. Don't worry too much. Even if this matter turns out to be the same as what we expected, Our confidence now is different from before. Looking at Di Beichen's indifferent and carefree appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang's mood unconsciously relaxed a little. That's right, let's take it one step at a time. After Tang Yinshu could not find Lu Hongwei in the sacred assembly, she ran to Lu Hongwei's house. However, no matter how she searched, she could not find Lu Hongwei, which made her feel very helpless. She could only return to the Xiao family again. After Xiao Yanlong and Jun Hong Chung knew about this situation, the two of them looked at each other and sighed in their hearts. I didn't expect President Liu to burn the bridge after crossing the river. Even if Sou is not the saint of light, he shouldn't go so far. Xiao Yanlong could not control the anger in his heart and roared on the spot. Chapter 54:23. This Bailey Hongzhuang does have some tricks up her sleeve. She has only become the saintess for a few days, yet she is already able to do this. Jun Hong Chung narrowed his eyes, a dangerous glint flashing in his eyes. He did not need to think to know that this matter was definitely related to Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, they had already expected that after Bailey Hongzhuang became the saintess of light, she would definitely think of ways to remove the people that the Xiao family had planted in the sacred assembly one by one. Even so, they were not too worried because the Xiao family had placed too many people in the sacred assembly over the years. If Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to drive people out, she would definitely need a reason. Finding a reason would take a lot of time. Furthermore, if she cleared out too many people in a short period of time, it would also arouse suspicion. Therefore, from their point of view, it would be very difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang to do all this. However, reality gave them a resounding slap in the face. Bailey Hongzhuang's actions were so fast that they did not even know what Bailey Hongzhuang had done. President Liu immediately cleared out so many people and even removed the position of vice president. To them, this was simply a bolt from the blue. This Bailey Hongzhuang is indeed not simple. Whether it is her or that Di Beichen, these two fellows are able to cause us so much trouble at such a young age. If they continue to grow, our troubles in the future will be endless. Xiao Yanlong sighed. Xiao Sou and the others rushed over after hearing that Xiao Yanlong had flown into a rage. Jun Lingxuan even seized this opportunity to directly tell them his plan. You mean that Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang will head to the AO family when the time comes? Xiao Yanlong asked. That's right. Jun Lingxuan nodded. Therefore, I plan to send more people over when the time comes and catch them all in one fell swoop. If this is true, it is a good idea. However, we do not know how many people the Di family will send. If they are prepared to take advantage of this opportunity to make a move on you, wouldn't that be troublesome? Xiao Yanlong's face revealed a pondering expression. After all the things that had happened during this period of time, he was a little more afraid of the Di family. These fellows were not easy to deal with. Perhaps they were also scheming against them. Hearing this, Jun Lingxuan subconsciously looked at Jun Hong Chung. Jun Hong Chung smiled and said, Brother Xiao, you can be rest assured. Just leave this matter to me, and I will not give them a chance to plot against us. Calms. Don't worry, leave this to me. In the next moment, the two of them looked at each other and a cold smile appeared on their faces. Now, this was no longer a fight between the younger generation. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang had threatened their family. Therefore, they had to get rid of them completely. Ao Zhengquang racked his brains, but could not come up with any solution. In the end, he had no choice but to look for Ao Lingxiao. He had already thought about it. Since he did not know the exact date, the best solution was to stay in the piercing wind city and not return. As long as he could not find him, Ao Lingxiao would not be able to do anything. This was undoubtedly the best solution. Chapter 54:24. You idiot! Jun Lingxuan looked at Ao Zhengquang with disdain. You can't even find out the date. What use do I have for a trash like you? Young Master Jun, you can't blame me for this. Ao Zhengquang's face was bitter. I was about to find out, but who would have thought that Ao Lingxiao would suddenly shut up? They are not stupid. They know that if we know the specific time, we will find a way to deal with them. So they have been keeping their mouths shut. However, I have thought about it. As long as I stay in the piercing wind city, they can't do anything to me. A.O. Junquang's expression was serious. This was the best method he could think of after thinking for so long. If you don't go back, then A.O. Lingxiao will directly convince your family to believe him. Then what will you do? Jun Lingxuan asked. No. If he can explain it clearly, then he will not fall into such a situation. But now, not only him, there's also Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. These two people's eloquence, you should be very clear. Jun Lingxuan said lightly. When these words came out, A.O. Junquang's face suddenly became nervous. Just as Jun Lingxuan said, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's mouths could make a dead person alive. Plus, this matter was the truth. After all, there were still many doubts. Once the family was convinced, then he would be in trouble. Thinking of this, A.O. Junquang's face became pale. Young Master Jun, you must help me. I can't lose everything. I beg you. A.O. Junquang directly knelt in front of Jun Lingxuan, begging in a low voice. It was not easy for him to get everything he dreamed of. He must not lose it like this. You get up first. Jun Lingxuan glanced at A.O. Junquang and said, Young Master Jun, help me. Leave this matter to me. Jun Lingxuan sighed, but his expression was full of confidence. You can go back with peace of mind. I will definitely arrive when they go to the A.O. clan. At that time, I will catch them all in one fell swoop, and your identity will not change. But Jun Xiao, you don't know when they'll go. After listening to Jun Lingxuan's words, A.O. Junquang did not feel relieved at all. On the contrary, he became even more worried. He felt that Jun Lingxuan was deliberately sending him back to die. He had no intention of helping him at all. I've said it before. Leave this matter to me. I'll figure out everything. When the time comes, the Xiao family and the Jun family will send their forces over. I guarantee that nothing will happen to you. Young Master Jun, don't think about your little schemes. This time, we're going to take advantage of this opportunity to capture Di Beichun and the others. If I didn't want to help you, I wouldn't even bother to lie to you. How could Jun Lingxuan not know what A.O. Junquang was thinking? Just by looking at his nervous and hesitant appearance, he could guess it, so he simply said it directly. After listening to this, A.O. Junquang was relieved. Indeed, if Jun Lingxuan was not willing to help him, he could not do anything. Why lie to him? Thank you so much, Jun Xiao. You must go back. If you don't go back, Di Beichen and the others will not go to your place, and I can't arrange anything. Yes. A.O. Junquang nodded again and again. Jun Xiao, don't worry. I will go back early and will not ruin your plan. Chapter 5425. Bailey Hongzhuang did not continue to stay in the piercing wind city as the matters of the Radiant Sacred Assembly were more or less settled. According to her discussion with Lu Hongwei, it was better for her to wait until the Radiant Sacred Assembly had moved out of their headquarters before heading there. This way, not only would it be safer, it would also reduce a lot of trouble. At the same time, President Liu would also carefully inspect the members of the Sacred Assembly during this process. He had made such a huge mistake in the past, and he would not allow such a thing to happen again. Bailey Hongzhuang did not say much about this, as she believed that President Liu had his own plans. If she were to stay in the Radiant Sacred Assembly, she might even cause some trouble for him. If she were to leave, it would be more convenient for President Liu to use his methods. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest immediately set off on their return journey. Even when they reached the outskirts of the piercing wind city, they could still feel the watchful eyes on them. The Xiao family obviously did not want to let them off, but the Radiant Sacred Assembly's forces were still here. Hence, they could only watch as Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest left. Even though this was their territory, it would not benefit them if they were to fight with the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Even though the Xiao family was a large family, if they were to fight with the Radiant Sacred Assembly, they might not be able to gain the upper hand. Even if this was their territory, everyone only heaved a sigh of relief when they reached the Di family's territory through the teleportation array. The journey seemed to be more daunting than dangerous, but throughout the entire process, everyone was on guard against any possible danger. Once they returned to the Di family, Bailey Hongzhuang was undoubtedly warmly welcomed. This time, only a small portion of the D family's cultivators had gone because to them, this was Xiao Sou's moment of glory and it had nothing to do with them. However, when everyone found out that the person who would eventually become the Holy Maiden was their young madam, they felt extremely regretful. If they had known that this would happen, they would have personally gone to witness it. Now, they could only regret that they had missed out on such a lively scene. Welcome, young master, young madam, eldest young master. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest returned to their lodgings with smiles on their faces. This time, they had indeed gained a lot. After meeting the elders, Bailey Hongzhuang went to Wu Weiming's residence. Previously, she had arranged for the disciples of the Bailey family to stay here, and she had been in the piercing Wind City for the past few days, so she did not have the time to take care of them. Since he had returned today, he naturally had to ask them if they had made any progress recently. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang appear, Wu Weiming immediately smiled and said, "Master, you're back." "Greetings, family head." All the Bailey family members bowed. "Congratulations, family head." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "Everyone, don't be shy. You can go about your business." In his line of sight, a group of Bailey disciples were drying medicinal herbs. As they dried the herbs, they recited the characteristics and uses of the herbs. "Master, many of them are just beginners, so I'll let them learn from the most basic, identifying medicinal herbs." Wu Weiming took the initiative to explain. They are indeed very hardworking. Even though they haven't had much time to learn, their improvement is not small. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around and listened to the characteristics of the herbs described by the crowd. She nodded in satisfaction. "Not bad. You have to remember more when you're just beginners. It's been hard on you these past few days. After I brought them here, I handed everything over to you." Chapter 54-26. As a senior brother, it's my duty to teach my junior brothers and sisters. Wu Weiming's face was filled with a gentle and warm smile, as if he had already taken this as his responsibility. Although he had inexplicably gained so many junior brothers and sisters, he did not feel that there was a problem. On the contrary, Bailey Hongzhuang's guidance had greatly benefited him. Seeing Wu Weiming so calm, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed in her heart. Knowing Wu Weiming was truly something worth celebrating. If people respect me, I will respect them tenfold. This had always been Bailey Hongzhuang's principle. Wu Weiming's willingness to do this was undoubtedly because of her. After all these years, Wu Weiming had never taught anyone medicine. Now, not only had he started to teach people, but he had also taught so many people at once. This was a big change. As a result, Bailey Hongzhuang put in more effort to teach Wu Weiming. Wu Weiming also knew why Bailey Hongzhuang was doing this. He also understood why Bailey Hongzhuang was able to reach this step at such a young age. Her personality was also the key to her success. A person like this was worth others' efforts. At first, it was because of Bailey Hongzhuang's guidance that he was willing to help her, but now, everything he did was done willingly. He had never been willing to stay in any organization. He only felt that the feeling of being tied down was not good. Now he felt that it was good to stop in the D family and take a break. Bailey Hongzhuang also spoke to the children of the Bailey family, giving them pointers on everything they needed to pay attention to when learning medicine. The children of the family were extremely enthusiastic towards Bailey Hongzhuang. They were truly fortunate to have such a family head. Now, the Bailey family was already as busy as a marketplace. Small organizations of similar strength all came to curry favor with them, including those who had previously mocked them. Bailey Hongzhuang had become the saintess of the light, which meant that not only did the Bailey family have the support of the D family, but also the Holy Assembly of Light. Even if the Bailey family's influence wasn't great now, everyone knew that the Bailey family was no longer a small fry. It wouldn't be long before they soared into the sky. It wasn't just the small forces. Even some of the mid-tier forces had sent people to befriend them. Even though this was within Bai Li Fan's expectations, he still couldn't help but be shocked when he saw so many people. In his memory, he had never seen such a lively scene in the family. The entire Bailey family was immersed in a joyous atmosphere. After so many years of enduring humiliation, they could finally hold their heads high. Bailey Hongzhuang was not worried about the Bailey family. She was well aware of Bai Li Fan's capabilities and believed that Bai Li Fan would be able to handle it well. There was really no need for her to worry. The next day, Di Baichen was surprised to hear that someone had come to pay them a visit. "I wonder who has come to pay you a visit." Xiao Bai's eyes were filled with curiosity. Could it be Jiang Wenyan? After the previous incident, their relationship with Jiang Wenyan had become extremely good. "I don't think so." Di Baichen shook his head. If it was Jiang Wenyan, he would have sent a message directly. The Jiang family's influence wasn't small, and Jiang Wenyan was the young master. The person who sent the message would definitely have reported it clearly. Now, it could only mean that the other party wasn't a big deal. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.